This conference will now be recorded.
Welcome, everybody, to the South Whitehall Township Planning Commission meeting for May 14th, 2026. Call the meeting to order, and please stand if you can for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the States of America. Well, will you please do the roll call? Here. 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 Here.
Online.
Okay, sorry, she couldn't hear you.
Diane Kelly.
Here.
Mark Luth, not here. And Dave Wilson.
Is running late.
He's running late. All right, Dave Wilson.
If you could review the meeting rules.
For an orderly meeting wherein all attendees may be able to fully participate, we ask that you adhere to the following rules. In order that both in-person and remote attendees may hear all comments or questions, all in-person attendees will be required to use microphones at all times. We request that remote attendees please mute your microphone or telephone to avoid background noise that may cause interference in the meeting and make it difficult for others to hear. Staff may mute the microphones of attendees if needed. Public questions and comments will be taken at periodic intervals throughout the agenda. Unless otherwise permitted by the chairman, residents shall limit their comment to no more than 5 minutes. The chairman or vice chairman, as the case may be, may extend comment beyond 5 minutes in his or her discretion. The chairman may rule out of order, scandalous comments, irrelevant and redundant comments, and comments designed to disrupt the meeting. For in-person attendees, please sign in on the appropriate sign-in sheet. Please raise your hand to be recognized, then move to the podium when directed. State your name, address, and comment or question. For remote attendees, the chat box features will be active throughout the meeting. If you have a question or comment, please type your full name and address in the chat box. When you are recognized and so directed, please unmute your microphone and state your comment or question. Mute your microphone when done. For those who are accessing the meeting by phone only, please keep your microphone muted unless it is your turn to speak. Callers must identify their full name and address prior to making a comment. Your cooperation and adherence to these rules will ensure an orderly and respectful meeting.
I would like to announce that the chairman, Dave Wilson, is now taking control.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you, Mr. Height. All right, we'll move on to agenda item number 3, review and approval of the March 12 meeting minutes. Anyone have any comments?
I'll make a motion to approve as submitted.
I'll second. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed?
I will
abstain. Go ahead, Diane.
Hi, Diane Kelly. I will abstain. I was absent.
And I will also abstain as I was out here.
2 abstentions, none opposed. So moved. The minutes are approved. All right, we're on agenda item number 4, subdivision review. The first project on the agenda is St. Joseph's Solar. Wolf, would you like to do the township staff presentation?
Kent will be doing it.
Ken, yes. Great.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As you can see from the agenda, we have two items to discuss tonight. One of the projects first, St. Joseph's Solar, is a project you've seen a few times maybe. This is a project at 1859 Applewood Drive. St. Joseph's, the Worker Parish Charitable Trust, is going to seek your recommendation for approval of a consolidation of lots so that they can achieve a solar array in the field next door. And that solar array will include 7 rows of solar panels. It'll include fencing. It'll include treed buffers between other neighboring properties and a small stormwater project. The review letters that we've received from staff and consultants over the last many months now show that the comments raised and concerns raised by all of them have been nearly met. 90% of the comments have been achieved, with 2 strong items holding the attention of our engineers and our planners. The first is stormwater and making sure that the stormwater basin is designed accordingly. And then secondly, a topic we might entertain your time with regarding pedestrian facilities and the establishment of what would be a combination of deferred sidewalks and crossings. So bringing the whole project forward, I think it's the consensus of the staff and consultants that this be recommended for approval, conditioned upon the letters from all of us, especially the engineering and the deferral topic of the sidewalks. To that end, I'd entertain any questions, but I'd like to reserve some time for all of us to talk about the deferred sidewalks. So if you have any questions, maybe regarding stormwater, it's one of those ones I think we have really finite details for. And of course, you might recognize St. Joseph's Church is here. Stephanie Cobal is here to represent them as their attorney. So we have plenty of people who can answer questions tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Baird.
I was just going to chime in with the conditions of approval. As Kent mentioned, we are recommending approval. There are 21 conditions. The first condition is our standard agreements condition. Conditions 2 through 13 are review letters. 14 to 16 deal with easements, and then 17 to 21 are essentially the standard language.
Thank you. Mr. Talarita, would you like to do the township engineer
Yes, thank you.
presentation?
This project, as was said, went through a few hurdles. It was a unique lot, a unique situation, but we worked through the engineering letter. We have very minimal comments, cleanup items at most, and we gave recommendations where we could for the waivers and deferrals. At this point, we recommend approval, conditioned upon our letters being addressed, but we feel it's the right time that they can move forward.
All right, thank you. Would the applicant like to present, and please just state your name and your relation for the applicant.
Good evening. My name is Stephanie Coble from Fitzpatrick, Lentz and Buba, representing the applicant St. Joseph the Worker Parish. With me this evening, I have quite the contingent. I have Monsignor Finelli, who's the pastor of St. Joseph the Worker Parish. I have Tim Hood, the business manager, and who's also a parishioner at the parish. I have Ben Jidlovic, who's a parishioner and works for Oracle Utilities, which helps the public reduce utility bills in part through solar installations. I have Matt Tripoli, who's a St. Joseph's parishioner, a licensed PE, a neighbor to the project, and works in the field of developing power plants. I have Jason Bukta, our engineer from Aero Consulting, who's also, I might add, a parishioner. And we have Dylan Kautz, who is the CEO of US Solar Development, who has over 20 years of experience in the solar industry. I also believe we have State Senator Jarrett Coleman here with us this evening. It truly is a partnership of church and state this evening, no separation of church and state tonight. As was mentioned, this project's located on the parish property at 1879 Applewood Drive and currently consists of 3 PIN numbers. is located within the R3 zoning district. The property is owned by the St. Joseph the Worker Parish Charitable Trust. The plan calls for the consolidation of 3 contiguous parcels into one 17.39 acre parcel with a solar array being installed on the westernmost side of the consolidated parcel. In addition to the solar array, the plan calls for installation of fencing, screening, a stone driveway, and some roadway improvements and dedication to address some items cited by Public Works. The solar panel will provide electric for the on-lot parish buildings, which you can see on the drawing up on the screens. And the primary intention here is to offset the church's on-site energy consumption. The parish did receive a DCED grant for this project. As was mentioned, St. Joe's has been working on this plan for a number of months. In fact, I forgot how long until I looked at one of the review letters. I think our first submission was in June 2025. So we've gone through multiple iterations of this to get it right. This is the first project of its type in the township, and I learned it's the first solar for a church in Lehigh County. So it really is unique. We also have discussed the plan with some neighbors who came to us and expressed some concerns, which did result in some additional screening. The plan is compliant with zoning, and except for the waivers and deferrals requested this evening, is compliant with the SALDO. At this time, the township staff and engineers, as you just heard, are recommending, the Planning Commission recommend approval. In addition, the LVPC noted that this project supports the future LV plan to mitigate climate change impacts. So this is one that candidly, should be celebrated as opposed to, some other things that we hear about from time to time. This evening, applicants requesting the following in terms of waivers and deferrals. And a lot of these relate to engineering. As you know, no one wants to hear a lawyer talk about engineering, so I will have Jason up here with me to help me with that. But waiver from SALDO section 312-12B15 from showing contours within 400 feet of the site. Mr. Talarita's letter voiced no objection to this one. Waiver from SALDO 312-12B21 from showing sidewalks, trails, driveways, streets, easements, and rights-of-way within 400 feet of the site. Mr. Talarita's letter also had no objection to this one. Waiver from SALDO 312-12B36 and 312-40. Waiver from providing a separate landscape plan and planting shade trees along the frontage of Applewood Drive and Clouser Road. A vegetative buffer is provided here instead. The Shade Tree Commission did review this at its meeting and found the plan acceptable. Staff noted that they wanted a shade tree easement. That's one of the conditions noted. We're okay with that. Deferral from SALDO 312-35B3A2, which is the sidewalk along Applewood Drive. And this is the sidewalk along Applewood Drive where the solar array is planned. There's 2 sidewalks that we're going to talk about tonight. This is where the hand is going back and forth on the screen. And then we're asking for a deferral from SALDO 312-35B3A2 from the sidewalk along Applewood and Clouser. This is where the hand is. We call it the soccer field, detention basin / soccer field in there. And then we're asking for a waiver from SALDO 312-26A, 312-35B, and 312-35B3A1. This all relates to cartway widening and installation of curbing along Applewood Drive and the Clouser Road frontages. We can go into the engineering discussion on this one, but the township did identify a small portion where they wanted Public Works, where they wanted it widened a little bit, and we are doing that work where they thought it was necessary to be done. And then the final is a waiver from SMP 296-18R4B, which is a waiver for basins to have slopes of less than 4:1. Township engineer deferred to Geotech on this one, and Geotech had no concerns or issues with it. As was mentioned this evening, we are seeking a recommendation for approval of the plan, as well as a recommendation on the waiver and deferral requests. We understand full well that we still need to address the outstanding comments in the applicable review letters. we do not see a concern with addressing those comments. And certainly to the extent that any of the members of the Planning Commission would like to talk through any questions they might have or any of the waiver or deferral requests, we are available to do so.
I think 5 years is a long time to defer sidewalk along Applewood and Clouser Road. So we can, I think the other ones are kind of self-explanatory. We
So
can jump to the
that
sidewalk.
one is actually the one that Kent was somewhat referring to, and I'd like to talk about that one. We are asking for a deferral this evening. And originally it was a 5-year secured deferral to ensure that it was done. Last week, and this is the ultimate example, I think, of a developer and the township and township staff and consultants working together. Last week on, I think it was Wednesday afternoon, we got an email from, I think, Kent saying, we think we have an idea to help you with the sidewalks in that area, because the problem with that area is there are stormwater concerns with installing sidewalks, specifically a stormwater swale. The Public Works Department identified concerns with utilities in the area. And so they called us and said, we think we have an idea. Can you get on a call with us? So we got on a call on Thursday with them and talked through an idea. So we're asking for a general deferral tonight. But the idea, and Jason, do you want to come up to show generally, we haven't worked it out yet, but the idea would be a deferral to allow us to put in certain pedestrian crossings across Applewood Drive and Clouser Road. Applewood Drive at 2 points to accommodate not only the parish side of the road, but also the school side of the road with some raised crosswalks, which would also help with some slowing of traffic in the area. And also on the corner of Clouser and Applewood on our site, I believe it was discussed, and I might get some of the terminology wrong here, a small cutoff area of Herb called it a rest place. Is that, yeah, a rest place. And the thought was that those changes actually fell better in line with what the township was looking to do anyway, and would alleviate Public Works concerns with putting the sidewalks around that portion of the property due to some of the utilities and swales and things of that nature. So that was the suggestion. What we are seeking tonight is a deferral. We understand that before we get to the the Board of Commissioners, we would have to show that on the plan. That would be shown on the plan. That would not impact the solar array portion of this plan at all, or the rest of the plan. And the Township Director of Legal Affairs and I would have to work through appropriate conditions that were acceptable to the township staff and consultants, and would be presented to the Board of Commissioners for ultimate approval. So it's a general deferral for this evening, but that is what was generally discussed. If I got any of that wrong, guys, or misrepresented or characterized, please let me know.
Yeah, I think what I'll do is I'll just tee up a few of the comments from Dave. Herb identified some constructability issues with the sidewalk along Applewood and Clouser. And as he continued to look at the utilities and the underground stormwater, it was going to be a real challenge for the church. And to realize the sidewalks might, as Trevor said, take quite a long time, that we all now have already been in anticipation of sidewalks from previous boards who hoped for pedestrian facilities years ago. And so bringing it forward, we reached out to the church and said, thanks to Herb, Dave, and Chris putting together an active transportation plan with you, there's a real opportunity to achieve pedestrian facilities sooner than this challenge would allow any of us to see. But I want to pass it right to Dave, because there's still some ideas developing, and we're working together, and a partnership is on the doorstep.
So when you look at the connectivity that they're looking to achieve, it's essentially can be accommodated on the other side of the street, so that you could wrap around the corner on the other side. So the idea is to enhance all of the crossings. Our active transportation plan identified several different solutions that we can put in place for crossings and then also intersection improvements. So the idea was to have crossings at the intersection of Applewood and Clouser, and then crossing across Clouser to get into Vistas Park where some of the new improvements were. And there's potential to line up with some of the new improvements. All of that has to be worked out and the details worked out. But the idea is the deferral gives us time to work it out prior to BOC, and we'll have a better picture at that point.
But again, this area of the plan, the whole reason this came up candidly is because there was a prior lot consolidation plan done 19 years ago that in the context of doing the earlier township reviews, unbeknownst to anyone here, and actually unbeknownst initially to the township, it was, I think in their second review, we came across this. No deed of consolidation was ever recorded, so it was a consolidation plan that got us halfway. And then as we started digging more and more into it, this is when all of this started to come up, which is part of the reason why we went through so many plan iterations. But the solution we're talking about this evening and why it's the general waiver, again, none of that will impact the bulk of the plan, the stormwater to the plan. We can accommodate it because, you know, it's far away on the site. So that's why, even in light of that, we think we can move forward.
Is this something similar we did with Dorney Park in terms of giving the applicant more time to work with the township to come up with an agreeable, good solution for pedestrian mobility? Because it's a very challenging area, very steep slope.
It's very similar to that. I think in an ideal world, we'll come up with the solution prior to BOC. But if we don't, we always have that option to handle it kind of like we did Dorney Park. The other thing to mention is a lot of the solutions in the active transportation plan have multiple usage, so they can act as traffic calming.
Yeah.
So this has been Clouser has been one of the roads identified for traffic calming potential. So if we have an opportunity to incorporate crossings and traffic calming, we're going to try and make that happen.
No, traffic calming's a big issue through Clouser.
So is the intent to put one of these raised crosswalks at Clouser and Emerald, Clouser and Applewood, and then Applewood between the school and the church? Is that the idea?
That's the idea. The locations might move. It may end up being a mid-block, so that it lines up a little bit more. There might be sidewalk required to get to that crossing. But those locations are kind of what's in flux right now, where those crossings are going to occur. But yeah, it certainly could be at the intersections. The mid-block was thrown out there.
Yeah, I was just looking at where the sidewalk currently ends.
Yep.
It ends for like ADA and stuff.
So, in terms of how this would be worked out, is there an agreement and there's strong
timeline.
legal enforcement to say this is going to get worked out and move?
There are a couple ways to look at it, but a deferral gives the township the right to call in a deferral anytime. So essentially, if the township's not satisfied, we can call in the deferral and they have to put in the sidewalk.
And
But hopefully we can work something out.
And the other thing I had talked about with the Director of Legal Affairs is securing the improvements that are agreed upon so that if they're not done, the township has the benefit of the security for them.
So that's like
Letter of credit,
a financial letter of credit. They put up the money for those improvements.
just like we would with any other improvements that we have to do in connection with this project and would be required to post.
My question is, was this section previously deferred?
Yes, it was.
I never,
Oh, is the sidewalk shown on that plan?
I don't know, we definitely found the resolution, but I don't know that we found the actual plan.
I don't believe the sidewalk was shown because at the time, I don't think the soccer field improvements were completed. So the deferral was to be called in around the time the soccer field was created. But as staff has pointed out, there's not really a lot of space where it is now to put those in.
I understand. And you said general deferral, so there's no time limit on that?
So if I could address that, just because of the discussions that I've had with Attorney Coble. But as you mentioned, it's similar to Dorney Park, and ideally in this case, we would have it worked out before it goes to Board of Commissioners. But
absolutely.
in the event that we don't, what we did in that particular case was to draft a condition that's incorporated into the resolution at the board level that requires the parties to enter into a frontage improvements agreement that provides for a design to be presented to the township. And we had handled it at that point through a professional staff consultation. And what that meant was that the design came back to the Planning Commission for review and comment, but not a vote. Essentially, it's up to the staff at that point. And as she mentioned, they would be securing the improvements that are proposed. So all of it is to be negotiated in the terms of that agreement. And whether that's done informally before BOC or formally after in the form of an agreement is up for decision at this point. But that's what was discussed between us.
Yeah, and in any case, it would be a condition of our approval. So we couldn't move forward with our project, which we are anxious to do because of the DCED grant monies for this project. So we have.
Am I correct in saying that if it's not done by the end of this year, it won't be done?
That is correct.
You have to finish construction and have everything rocking and rolling by the end of
Correct.
2026.
So we have a heck of a lot of incentive to.
When was the grant awarded?
Do you know, Tim? March of 2025. So we did our first submission in June. So it really, this was just a project that it's very unique and we ended up having to clean up some things that just weren't, done the way they should have been done in the past through no fault of anyone sitting before you tonight, but we're cleaning them up now. So
The Dorney Park, I think that's just kind of the example we're working with here. Has that sidewalk deal, that's been approved and done, like they're working on it, right?
Yeah, it's like 70%
I
forward.
would say.
It's all formed out.
I just keep going back to that 5-year timeline. That hasn't been 5 years since we talked about
I
it.
will suggest that if a deferral is recommended tonight, that no time limit be assigned to it, and that we can memorialize in the condition at the board level, because at this point, I think it's unknown, but applicant has represented on the record tonight that they will have it done by the end of this year. So I suspect that that's kind of what will be incorporated in the condition, but
That will enable us to, not the township wants to pull the deferral right away opposed to.
yeah, and the only sort of issue I'd say would be if we ran into paving issues, because the rest of our project doesn't involve paving. This would. So if we're getting to October or November and there's 2 feet of snow that comes really early, that, we'd have to work with you on that, but that's sort of outside the norm, and that's you run into that with most developers in the winter.
Can't pave during certain winter months.
Yeah,
That's
Yeah.
understood,
Yeah, you guys get that.
The other thing that might come into play, and reason Herb's involved, Director of Public Works, is where Clouser and Applewood fall in the paving schedule. So we won't want to put in anything and just have to rip it out for paving. So I think that's the other piece that needs to be coordinated.
Yeah.
And where's that on the schedule?
I don't know.
And
But I mean, it's a relatively fluid schedule. So
Right.
if this project comes in, he'll probably bump up if it needs it.
We got roads that haven't been paved in 35 years.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
what's another year?
Those are in good condition.
but
Yeah.
yeah,
That's like pristine.
we would be agreeable with not having the time limit in the condition tonight in order for the staff and consultants to work through an appropriate timeline with those considerations that we just discussed.
Is there any design issues with the northern section?
Other than slopes?
I think for the benefit of Mrs. Kelly, who's online. Thank you.
Sure. I think the slopes are a challenge in that area. And it was discussed with township staff that maybe potentially in the future, it would be an asphalt path instead of a
Right.
concrete path.
And so for that reason, we're asking for the deferral of that just because
But would you design it as part of the plan recording? Because other projects, we have requested that they at least show it and engineer it and have all the stormwater calculated. And then when we do ask for a deferral, it's easier than the lower section. I'm not saying that we're going to request it be constructed, but if the farther northern parcel that's also owned by the church gets developed, then we can say, hey, we got a deferral, here's an engineer, you're good to go.
Yeah. So
Now, that might never happen.
right.
It's at least recorded somewhere.
Yeah. So I'm 99% sure that the sidewalk was accounted for in the stormwater.
Okay.
I'd have to just verify that. But the only thing that wasn't accounted for in the stormwater would be if there was any road widening in that area. So we did.
Even though that little section that Public Works. is gonna do.
That piece is accounted for. The rest of the widening would not be.
Understood. Okay. Thank you.
You go over the buffering. I know the Landscape and Shade Tree Commission asked for additional buffering and you provided it, so that's appreciated. You want to just go over that because that's an important.
Yes. So initially we were looking to find out what the township would want along Applewood Drive. And we wanted to really screen this more than put in street trees, which wouldn't screen it. So that's the reasoning behind the evergreens along Applewood Drive. And then the screening around the backside, the larger evergreen trees, we initially had up in the buffer area. But after discussions, we wanted to pull that out to provide a better screen. And I believe we added more evergreens in there as well. So it'll provide a nicer full screen from the neighboring properties. And then we also added in taller, skinnier, like arborvitaes, I believe it was, closer to the solar array and around the basin to provide an extra screen.
The intent is when you're driving through Applewood, person in the car is going to see a screen of evergreen trees opposed to looking into a field of solar.
Correct.
Once they mature.
Yes.
Yeah, fully.
Yep. Does anyone have any questions?
Could you just describe the fence, how that's going to look? Is it just a chain link or I saw architectural in there?
Yeah, so this is just refreshing my memory. There's a 4-foot tall split rail fence that's going to go around the basin. And that has a wire mesh on it so that people and animals can't get through it. And then around the solar array is, I believe it's an 8-foot high agricultural fence. So basically you're only going to really see the posts from a distance. And then as you get closer, you'll see there's a large, like I think it's a 4-inch square fencing. So it keeps it open feel to it, yet secure.
Yeah, because you're going to get wind up there.
Yeah.
Elevation. And my final question is does this system use a battery energy storage system?
For that.
Dylan, can you come forward and answer that? We'll let the solar designer answer that for you.
Why is here?
I'm Dylan Kautz with US Solar Development. So typically, any commercial systems that you see are going to be grid-tied systems. So they don't have a battery. The energy comes back and would feed the switchgear for the church. Any excess would go back to the grid and credit their meter. And then at nighttime, at the end of the day, they're pulling against that credit that they sent back during the day. So it's a constant credit and debit system. Someday, maybe they could put in batteries, but the cost needs to go down a whole lot.
I would prefer not to see batteries myself.
Okay.
Thank you for the explanation. I'm good.
Going back to the gate, I'd imagine this is going to be secured. I noticed the Public Safety Commission doesn't have anything, but imagine it's going to be locked. Will there be
Yeah, this will be locked and there'll be a, I believe there's a lockbox.
Okay, for a case of
Fire.
emergency?
Yep.
Okay, very good. I just didn't see anything on the Public Safety Commission. I just wanted to follow up.
Do the fire companies need anything specific for solar panels catching on fire?
For a little bit to that. It's not preferred to use water to fight any kind of fires in this. And they have other alternative ways to fight those fires.
So
correct.
It's
So
probably a
this would not be
rhetorical question,
like,
but do we have that
yes,
within the township?
the fire departments here in the township do have the capabilities of containing this if it would actually.
And I believe there was discussion back and forth with the applicable, with public safety regarding the fire protection for this type of installation, which I think was, those were the types of questions that were coming up. That is why.
Okay, yeah, it's not my expertise, but I know it's different than a house catching on fire. So.
Correct.
I'm assuming it's very similar to an electric vehicle fire.
Actually different, but
similar.
It's an electrical fire.
Battery,
correct.
Yeah.
The car, you're dealing with the batteries. This is just an electrical fire.
Right.
So dry camera or a special K.
Understood.
Thanks.
Anyone else on the planning commission here?
Yeah, I would just make a comment that, here we have a plan that's submitted, and one part of the holdup on this was a pre-existing deferral. The site's been used pretty actively for the last 10 years or so. Like something to keep our mind on, that, these pre-existing deferrals, where this is probably something that should have been called into the landowner previously, because they've been using that site and exercising its use for the community for quite a while. That now it's added extra language and time here tonight for us to go through, and we're working with public utilities to make sure there aren't issues, but something that could have been addressed previously, probably should have been. Is there one question I will add? Is there any lighting, since you're securing that site, is there any overnight lighting facilities in there?
No, we're not proposing any site lighting.
All right, good. Thank you.
Okay, anyone in the audience, anyone online? Are there any questions? Yep. Karen, you can come to the podium. Please just state your name, address for the record.
My name is Karen Kirchdorfer. I live in the Vistas, which abuts St. Joseph's. And my concern is that there are over 300 houses just in our development. And realtors love us. The houses in our development are sold almost immediately. And part of that reason is because of our neighborhood. It's a beautiful, quiet, suburban neighborhood that flows into a rural neighborhood, a rural area. You put something like this in, and I don't care how many trees you plant, it's going to look industrial. And I would like to know if any study has been done as to what that is going to do to the value of our properties. If that drops the value of over 300 properties, I think that's a lot to ask of the citizens of this township, just so the church can cut down on their electric bills. And I'd also wonder if the church can't use their roof, obviously not for that size of facility, but if they couldn't put panels on their roofs to supply themselves and don't worry about selling anything back to the grid. Because this, I could see something like this. First of all, you plant the trees, they're too small to cover the facility, cover the installation for how many years? I don't know. And then as they die out and things get old and the panels themselves get old and start to look it, et cetera, how is this going to impact us, the taxpayers who live right next door? I think we need to be the first consideration here.
Thank you. Could the applicant, because there are some stated concerns about these panels after some time becoming an eyesore. Can anyone go over decommissioning plans and what happens with the solar panels after a long extended time and how they're handled with the decommissioning plans?
So I can cover a few things. Just my opinion on that site there. So I've been in the solar industry since 2009, and I'm out of Lancaster, so Central PA. We've done a bunch of systems all over for businesses. We don't do any utility scale systems. All the systems we do are to provide power for the business, or in this case, the parish. This site is kind of slopes downhill. So I've been in these meetings before, and typically there's a lot of unknown. What's it going to look like? This site, the site here slopes downhill. So the viewing angle, there's not going to be nearly as much places for you to see that, as opposed if it was like sitting up on a hill where you could see it from a distance. Decommissioning wise, we're putting a lot of steel in the ground. So there's value to the system, even if for some reason 30 years from now it didn't work at all. There's still real value there that you can basically scrap the system and pay to take it out of the ground. But the solar panels, this is proven technology. These are the same monocrystalline solar panels that we were using in space in the 60s. So it's not something that goes out like a light bulb. They last, they have 30-year power output warranties. After 30 years, their warranty is they'll still be producing 82% or 83% of what they are from day one. So as long as someone is servicing the system, that system will be operational. There is solar panel recycling, so that's where that would go at the end of the system life. Is there any other questions related to that I could address?
How high are the actual arrays from the ground to the highest point?
I want to say, I don't have the plans in front of me. Are they 9 feet? Yeah.
Okay.
So
Can you talk about the servicing that you kind of alluded to? You know, who's responsible for the service? Do you guys have a land lease with the parish? Does the parish own the panels? How's that work? Who's responsible for the maintenance?
Sure.
if it's important?
So we have a 5-year warranty. The parish owns the system. So we are just the contractor helping to install it. And then afterwards, we have annual service plans. So every year, somebody's going to be going out there and taking a documented inspection. A lot of the insurance companies want that, but we do electrical, infrared testing. So we're taking pictures of everything, testing everything. And then the system is actively monitored too. So we're able to see it remotely, what it's producing. If something breaks, we have reactive service. We send out a tech to fix it. So as long as you kind of have somebody keeping an eye on these systems, it's unlikely that it would go into disrepair, and it's in the parish's best interest that they keep that operating to save on their electric bills.
Are these fixed or do they track with the sun?
They're fixed.
And it's a maintained grass underneath, correct?
Yeah. And I will say too, we have some pictures of the fencing there, but the agricultural style fence looks very nice. So that industrial look that you would see with a chain link fence, the agricultural, it's a round post, wooden post that's pounded into the ground. They're 15 to 16 feet apart, and then it's basically a deer fence in between it. So you can, from a distance, you can't really tell that the fence is there, but it's there. It keeps everything out of there. The most recent one we did with black fencing, and then we had like black gates on them, and it looked really nice. And we had people that were opposed to the system prior in a meeting like this that afterwards said they didn't care if there was plantings there, that they thought it looked nice. So just a
So that
comment
fencing
there.
is like a 4-inch woven wire that's in between the posts?
Yeah.
Okay. Is the system currently over-designed that you expect to be giving a lot of power back to the grid? I know technically it sounds like the parish is still going to be using those credits anyway, so it's not quite a quote-unquote sellback, because could you educate everybody on, like Pennsylvania, we don't, if I'm not mistaken, have a community solar program, so it's more of that like intermediate credit that you can just kind of use later. It's not a true like give back.
Yeah, so this is not a system that is what I would consider selling back to the grid. They're getting credited, but they're using all their credits. So first and foremost, the power is going to come to the church and satisfy any loads in their big breakers in their switchgear, and then only the excess goes back. But then they're also pulling from the grid whenever they need power. So it's a constant credit and debit. They're going to be using all the power. In the case that they have excess on that meter, they have additional meters that they can use virtual net metering, that they can send the excess to any other meter that they would own within 2 miles. So if there's excess there, they can send it to the school or another one of their buildings, but they will be consuming every kilowatt
They're using
hour.
it for themselves.
Yes.
Does anyone else in the audience have questions? Please state your name, address for the record.
Sure. Thank you, Commissioners. My name is David Bakley. I live on Hemingway, right around the corner from St. Joseph's. And I don't think anybody in our development can argue that St. Joseph's, the worker, does phenomenal stuff for the community. The most active Catholic church I've ever seen, and I was born and raised Roman Catholic. However, I don't know if they thought this one through. As my wife, Karen Kirchstoffer, just recently stated, there is a concern about resales of the homes, which she was pretty generalized. I'd like to be a little bit more specific. She said our homes sell really fast. the realtors, I keep in touch. I was the president of the COA for 10 years, and I kept in close touch with the real estate people. That was part of my duties, I thought. And some of them said we have record sales. I mean, we could literally list a property at 3 o'clock and by 4:30 close a business. It was sold. That's fast. And we'd like to maintain an expeditious resale of our homes. It is a very beautiful community, and one of the beauties we enjoy is an aesthetic value to the community. And kudos to St. Joseph the Worker for putting up barriers. Is that enough? We don't know. And no one's going to know until it's actually done, and it might be too late then. I would like to ask two questions of the representation for St. Joseph's the Worker. I had heard tonight for the first time that there was going to be raised walkways on Clouser and Applewood. What is a raised walkway? What do you consider? Is that like the deer crossings you see on 287 in New Jersey, or?
It's essentially a type of speed table. So it's a crosswalk that's elevated, so it acts as a speed bump.
Sorry. Basically, across Clouser, it's not necessarily a speed bump, but it's raised.
Like a curb.
So,
May I approach?
Yep.
Absolutely.
If a car is flying over it, it's like they're gonna hit a speed bump. Yes, but it's a hump.
But it's a little more elongated.
Recently, the difference between I seriously didn't know.
Yeah.
I actually have what a bump was.
Mr. Chairman, just to add for David's edification, that raised walkway will actually bring some visibility for cars traveling on Clouser.
Sure.
They'll see moms and dads and strollers elevated up off the ground. So it'll definitely slow people down when there's no one around and a car is going to go over that elevated walkway. They are going to want to slow down every time thereafter. But just so you know, it brings people up a little higher too.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm wondering if St. Joseph's the Worker actually did do a little bit of thoughts on the pros and cons, and I'm sure they did, but I'd like to bring it up for the commission's concerns. Rooftop versus solar farm. There are advantages to solar farms, but there are many disadvantages to solar farms. St. Joseph's Worker is not a big industrial plant. They don't create anything. They do not build anything. They don't have heavy machinery. So the amount of extra energy produced by a solar farm, I'm actually concerned personally if that is a little bit overkill, especially when you consider that solar farms traditionally will have an impact on irrigation, will have an impact on the local vegetation in the area. And it's like a hayfield now, I believe, but it's still plantation vegetation always affect erosion of the soil, and also the disposition of wildlife. They said about deer fences, you need deer fences. Okay, it's a small area, a couple acres, but still, where's that wildlife going to go? And how's the impact overall on the community with the erosion of the property, the wildlife that lives there? I know I walk by there, I see deer all the time, and I'm like, hey, that's really beautiful. I don't want to say, hey, wow, we used to see deer, now we're looking at a solar panel. And all this, and then coming back to the effects of our house properties, when I think it would probably actually be more economical for St. Joseph's the Worker, maybe not at the beginning, but to do rooftop. You have plenty of rooftop space between the school, the church, and the parish offices. They have a ton of rooftop space that might be actually more economical for them. You do not have to destroy a field, and it'll actually look much more presentable and more modern, which St. Joseph's the Worker is a very modern church. It would go right on in with the aesthetics of the church and not ruin the community aesthetics. So those are my concerns. They may be overkill, they may sound greedy, but I think it is a very legitimate concern for the commission to at least consider. before making a decision over here. We have nothing against St. Joseph's Church. We have nothing against solar panels. When I was president of the COA, I moved to have solar panels in our community, and we got that pushed through. It's the farm aspect and ruining the aesthetics and the agricultural of the area and the wildlife of the area. I don't see why, even if it offsets not 100%, 80%, 70% of the church's electric bill, it'll still be economical. They're not building trees or planting trees, they're not building sidewalks. Everything can stay as our community has always been, beautiful and aesthetically pleasing when we walk down the street.
Thank you, Dave. Chris, do you want to pull up maybe Google Earth and just show the proximity of the farm field now in relation to the Vistas subdivision?
And while we're doing that, my comment would be, I don't know, maybe the applicant knows, if the roof is even structurally able to support that kind of system. The church was built in 1975, so I don't know if they had the same engineering for snow loads like they have now. So that might have been a consideration of the applicant.
So the Vistas is on the right there. There you can see Emerald Drive, High Vista Drive. There is a fair amount of existing woods. Oh, please come to the podium. State your name and address for the record.
Martin Sinisky. We have 5318 Snowdrift Road and 5430 Snowdrift Road. And unlike the Vistas, I am a direct neighbor. I border all the sides of the property that doesn't border Applewood. All the woods on top of Vista side, the 22 acres there. Now that's my circle driveway right in front of the tree line. And my well is also there. And the whole property runs downhill into my property. I'm concerned about the housing value because personally, if I was going to buy 4,500 square foot on 22 acres, I would not pay the price with a solar field in front of my house. I've also have concerns about the water runoff. When they built the Vistas, I paid an engineer to come and sit at the meetings, and all storm water was supposed to go out to the street. Instead, the rain gutters go right to the ground. Since they built that, I have water coming out and it's draining down in my driveway on Snowdrift Road. So I have concerns about the retention pond because it is a serious slope downhill all onto my property. What I'm concerned about is what happened with the Pulte development. It goes in ground, it follows the path of least resistance in the shale, and it ends up popping out of my driveway. So I'm concerned that retention pond, which is going to be right up against my property, is going to cause a problem. If that happens, how does that get resolved? How is my property protected?
Thank you. Would the applicant's engineer like to speak to the stormwater controls? Is there permitting you have to do through the Conservation District and DEP for this? And
What happens if it fails?
Yeah, so.
Is the mic on?
Yeah, I did turn it off so I can be a little bit closer to it. So we do have to follow regulations and the Act 167 to meet certain discharge rates. We have to reduce the rates from existing conditions. So the amount of water coming out of the basin is less than it currently is today. And we are also have to discharge the water in the same direction that it's going currently. So therefore, the stormwater that's coming off of the site today will be reduced once the basin is constructed.
you have to do an off-site discharge analysis mapping the path from the stormwater basin to the receiving water and prove to the conservation district you're not increasing flows and not degrading.
Yeah, yeah. So we have to find a point of interest, which is a common interest point before things are constructed and after things are constructed. So like I was saying, the stormwater that's going there currently to that point of study is going to be reduced once the development is completed.
Going to be reduced, but it's going to be reduced by going underground. Third, it's going to pop up somewhere on my property. Multi-development did.
This is actually not an infiltration basin. This is just strictly a detention basin. So the stormwater will run off down into the basin. The basin will hold the water and slowly release it.
When you say release, you mean get absorbed into the ground?
No,
Draining it.
there's what's called an outlet control structure that's in the basin. All the stormwater goes to that outlet control structure, and that structure reduces the amount of flow that can come out and limits it.
What is an outlet control structure?
Can you-
And the water's going to directly drain like a pipe at a fixed rate?
At a reduced rate, yes. So in the structure, I believe it's typically like a 3-inch hole that the stormwater goes through for the most part until it reaches to a certain point. And that 3-inch hole reduces the amount of flow that can come off.
So there's not a lot of distance from that retention pond to my property line. Disturbs me a lot.
Okay, but
I want to know if I have a problem in the future, are you going to fix it? That's going to hurt my property value severely because that entire property not only does it run down to me, but it creates a
Can you
property line.
Can you speak to any stormwater O&M agreement in terms of owner is going to be responsible to maintain the existing basin where it's operating?
Long-term maintenance responsibilities.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm quite concerned because what I built
Sir,
house on 18 acres.
can you speak into the microphone?
Yes, I can. Thank you. When I built our house on the property on 18 acres at the time, till I bought the additional land, I had to do a 100-year flood study, the conservation district, the county. I had to jump through a whole bunch of burning hoops. And I don't see the same concern with this project that I had.
Sir, I'm the engineer for the township, and they did do an analysis, much like you had to do, for the 100-year storm throughout. They have an emergency spillway, so they've analyzed if a worst-case scenario came, where the water would go. And to Dave's question, we did have them do an analysis the whole way down to the road and what inlets and where the water does go. So there was a pretty thorough review on this. Again, there's agreements that they have to maintain it. And if it does come up, you have every right to come to the township and discuss the problems that the basin would be causing.
And we do have to enter into, it's one of the conditions, normal development and stormwater control maintenance agreements, which require us to build them in accordance with the plan, have them inspected by the township, proving that they operate and work. And to the extent those inspections yield that they weren't constructed in accordance with the plan that complies, by the way, with the township's ordinances and regulations, we have to fix them so that they do comply. And if they're malfunctioning, we also have to fix them. And that's a document that's of record and runs with the land. So in the unlikely event that St. Joseph, the Worker Parish Trust would not be the owner, it would stay with the land and the owner would be responsible for it down the road. And those are enforceable by the township.
And another thing I would like to say is a lot of the stormwater regulations have changed and gotten more strict since 2000 to 2006. 2006 is when the Vistas were built. I think your property was 2003-ish. And so there's a lot more safeguards currently today than was back even 20 years ago.
I have one other concern. I've been reading a lot of articles online about the solar panels, and as they age, they give off heavy metals potentially into the soil. And my well is very close to the tree line. Do they have to do any soil studies to prove that they're not leaching any heavy metals, cadmium or lead or whatever, anything?
I would defer to, that would be like a DEP. Let's see if the applicant has experience with solar panels.
Just introduce yourself.
I am Matt Tripoli. I'm a parishioner with St. Joe's and resident of Vorfield. When the solar panel industry really got going in the kind of mid-aughts, of 20 plus years ago, there were a lot of different technologies with solar panels. Some of them did use cadmium telluride. The panels we are using are, Dylan mentioned earlier, monocrystalline, so they do not have those heavy metals in them. There's a little tiny bit of lead for like the soldering of the electrical connections and stuff like that, but it's not, you would have to literally like pulverize the panel and to have that. There's probably more lead from shotgun shells in that field than in all our solar panels, so.
All right, because I know you walked the property with me, you had come over and you saw where my well was so close to the tree line, which is why I'm concerned about that.
Yep, that's a good question.
The only other comment I have, if I'm allowed to make a comment, this has been going on quite a while, and I keep getting cards in the mail that it's going to be a meeting, and I come to the meeting and it's canceled. So I have not been able to make a meeting to voice a concern until tonight, because it was brought up, your water problems or whatever issues it is. It's all done before the meeting, then the meeting is canceled. And as a resident, I did not get to voice an opinion until tonight. It'd be nice if you held a meeting that people could actually come in early on and voice their concerns so they could be addressed instead of at final approval.
Understood. And every meeting has, and you can look at tonight's agenda item number 7, courtesy of the floor. And I'm sure there's a lot out in the audience here for other reasons. You can come to any meeting, there's courtesy of the floor, and even if the project isn't on the agenda, you can speak to it. The reason projects get pulled from the agenda is sometimes they're just not up to snuff, and the applicant has to provide more engineering design, and it's just not ready to. They have to do more work, and it's just not ready to publicly present.
Okay, and if I could just go over the buffer. Okay, if I walk over here to the point.
If you're going to speak, we'll need to hear you on the microphone. We have another commissioner online.
Just for the benefit of Planner Kelly, the neighbor asked about the shrubs that we had previously pointed out on the plan bordering the solar panel array.
Okay, my concern is I just wanted to see the buffer zone that we had discussed to see that it didn't change. And I'd like to thank Matt and Steve because they did actually call me a couple times to meet with me. Early on, it was like a mystery. And I stopped a couple times and talked to Dave, and I actually had an engineer come in and look at the plans because I wasn't getting any information. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so there are waiver and deferral requests.
Hey, I apologize, but just for the benefit of someone's question, can the solar or someone on your team talk about rooftop versus the current layout? I think that was a question. I just want to make sure the publics are answered.
I think there's a few things we looked at here. We do have a lot of different buildings on the church property, and it's pretty, inefficient to try to come up with a way to approach, having a system that's going to integrate into all the different electrical panels and all the different buildings. And we have different age roofs that, you can't put solar panels on them without having a roof that's going to have a really long life. So you don't have to rip the solar panels up before replacing the roof. Church has recently had some roofing issues that were pretty sensitive from a maintenance perspective as well. So, the ground array made a lot of sense in this instance, since the church owns the property and it was immediately adjacent, to our facilities. So, we've worked to be very diligent about, trying to screen it. I think we have a long history in the neighborhood of maintaining our properties well, and would expect to apply the same care to this property to maintain it. It will be a nice meadow grass that's planted with the panels. That's intended to be easy to maintain, and will, in my experience, provides pretty good habitat for the types of critters that we have around this neck of the wood. It's an ore field. So I think there's a lot of things to point to that'll, be positive from the sustainability aspects of this project. And the whole intent is that this is something that's going to help the church, the parish, be more sustainable over the long run and continue to be part of the community in the way it is, and hopefully growing in the future.
Thanks, appreciate it.
Yep.
You can come up one more time.
5318 Snowdrift Road and 5430. When you get the DC coming off the panels, they're going to have a large inverter to convert it to AC, step-up transformer to transmit. I'm just curious what kind of noise levels that are going to be, because it's probably right on the corner of my property, close to my home. How loud they are?
Question was the noise levels.
So Dylan Couts again, US Solar Development. So, yep, sorry. That equipment, the inverters are going to be up further towards the road. So there's no equipment that would make any noise kind of down towards your house. It's all up towards the road, and then there's screening in front of it. But in general, they'll have 3 inverters there. It's a German-made inverter. They're pretty quiet. I mean, if you're I don't know, 60 feet away from them, you can hear them, and they sound a little bit louder when the sun is kicking and it's the middle of the day, but they're by no means noisy. And then the actual transformer, there is a step-down transformer that would be all the way over by the utility transformer over by the parish. So that would be on the corner of the existing building.
I thought when I spoke to Matt, he said there was going to be a step-up transformer to be able to transmit it over to the school net at a higher voltage, so you don't have the loss.
There will be a step-up transformer, but that will be, or it'll be a step-down transformer. It'll be over by the church building. I'd have to look at the spec sheet.
Excuse me, but if you're going to
have any questions, if anyone has questions, please come to the podium, because it needs to be into the mic, and just we'll just have one person come up at a time, and just please get all your questions at once, because we want to move them.
I just asked the engineer what the expected decibel level is, what he considers low. And while I'm up here, I'm going to say I would really like to see a study on how this is going, how putting something this industrial, this commercial into a residential area impacts the home value, the value of the homes, before any approvals go out. Thank you.
I don't have the actual decimal level. It's going to be on the spec sheets that we submit with the system. But what I will detail that these are small inverters. It's not like a large industrial system. And just in general, this is not a solar farm. It's big enough for the church. It is not one of these, if you see the township meetings about solar farms going in, those are, this is a 400 kW system. Those are 10,000 kW systems, 20,000 kW systems. But generally.
The other comment I would make is the township, I believe, does have a noise ordinance and a nuisance ordinance, and certainly we would have to comply with all of those ordinances. And, you know, here the applicant has done everything possible to create a plan that meets and often exceeds the township standards. It is a compliant plan. This is an appropriate use that is permitted under the zoning ordinance. What's before the township tonight is planning aspects of this plan, as I know this commission is well aware.
Yeah, unfortunately, the requirement of a real estate study, that is not in our purview to require. We don't have the legal authority to enforce or to require a real estate value study. We just, our ordinance does not have the teeth to require that. All right. I think we're at the point where we need to make a decision. Planning Commission is a recommending body. We make recommendations for or against application to the Board of Commissioners. We're not the final recommended body. We don't provide the final say. So we have some waiver requests, deferrals. What page was that on in the?
It's 58, and then township letter 69.
All right.
Be updated, because it says 5.
So we can go to page 61 and we'll just go through them one by one. All right. First one is Saldo section 312-12.B15. Waiver requested for showing topographic contours within 400 feet of the site. Basically, this is just graphical depiction on the plans. It doesn't have anything to do with actual construction.
And they have provided stormwater, they have addressed stormwater management comments by the township. And with that information, the engineer has no engineering objection to the request. With that being said, I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
Or recommend approval.
Second.
Those in favor?
Aye.
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 Those opposed? Opposed? We'll move on to Saldo section 312-12.B21. Waiver requested for showing sidewalks, trails, driveways, streets, easements, and right-of-way within 400 feet of the site. Based on the information provided, there was no engineering objection. Once again, this is graphical depictions on the plan.
I'll make a motion to recommend approval of the waiver.
Second.
Those in favor?
Aye.
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 Those opposed? Opposed? So moved. Waiver request number 3, Saldo section 312-12B36 and 312-40. Waiver requested for providing a landscape plan. A vegetative buffer is proposed between the road and the solar array. clarify this item to identify any requested relief from installation of street trees along property frontages. So the landscape plan per se wasn't provided, but a plan showing all the buffers, all the landscaping was given, that was reviewed by the Landscape and Shade Tree Commission. They made the revisions per the Landscape and Shade Tree Commission. Anyone want to make a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Second.
Is that a motion?
Recommend.
Recommend, yes, sorry.
I'll second it again.
Those in favor?
Aye.
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 Aye. Opposed? None opposed? So moved. Number 4, Saldo Section 312-35B3A2. Deferral requested for requiring sidewalk along the solar array frontage on Applewood Drive. Does anyone want to make a motion? The plans do show the sidewalk. Do we want to show that on the screen? So if a deferral would be pulled in
It's there.
shown on the plans.
I'll make a motion to approve the deferral requested for requiring sidewalk along the solar array on Applewood Drive.
I'll second.
Those in favor?
Aye.
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 Those opposed? Opposed, so moved. Number 5, Saldo Section 312-35B3A2. Deferral requested. Does the applicant want to make any adjustments to this request?
That was submitted, it said 5 years.
Yeah, the applicant would make the adjustment that there be no specific time mentioned consistent with the discussion tonight and working out the timing with the Director of Legal Affairs and the rest of the township staff prior to proceeding before the BOC.
So,
As well as, was there like a surety bond with that?
If we are to enter into a frontage improvements agreement, that will be among the terms that are required. Yes.
our Director of Legal Services, understand what the modification was.
I think she stated it very well. In fact, I think it was the same as what I suggested earlier. So perfect, Stephanie.
So it's per that discussion, the deferral requested for sidewalk along Applewood Drive and Clouser Road frontages, soccer field frontage. This request is to extend the existing deferral of the requirement to install sidewalks along the portions of the Applewood Drive and Clouser Road rights of way adjacent to the existing soccer field.
And that's cognizant of traffic calming measures that are going to be worked out with the township and the applicant.
Anyone want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to grant the waiver for Saldo Section 312-35B 3A2 related to the sidewalk along the frontages of Applewood Drive and Clouser Road as discussed by Chairman Wilson, Vice Chairman Height, the applicant's attorney, and the township's legal director.
I'll second that. Oh, Kelly can have it.
Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Opposed, so moved. Number 6, Saldo, Section 312-26A, 312-35B, and 312-35B3A1. Waiver requested for requiring cartway widening and installation of curbing along the Applewood Drive and Clouser Road frontages.
And the portion that the applicant said was going to be widened will be widened, correct?
And it's shown on the plan, yes.
With that, I'll make a motion to recommend approval.
As a waiver or a deferral?
That's going to interrupt that and say we would recommend a deferral in case an adjacent property would be developed to the west of this. We would recommend a deferral so that you can have a consistent roadway.
I'll modify it to be reflective of a waiver.
You mean deferral?
Of a deferral.
A deferral.
So not a waiver.
A deferral.
A deferral.
Yes. I can make the motion again if you would.
Can you?
I'll make a motion to grant or recommend approval by the Board of Commissioners to grant a deferral of this section.
Second. Those in favor?
Aye.
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 Aye. Those opposed? Opposed, so moved. Number 7, SMP Section 296-18R4B. Waiver requested for basins to have very flat slopes, less than 4 horizontal to 1 vertical. This was reviewed by the geotechnical engineer. My understanding is the geotechnical engineer did not have any objection to it. Somewhat normal. Rest 4 to 1 is a bit excessively flat sometimes for a basin. Anyone have any questions or want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to grant the waiver for SMP Section 296-18R4B related to very flat slopes, less than 4 to 1, as approved by the Township geotechnical consultant.
I'll second that.
Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Unopposed? So moved. Great, so now we need to move on to make a decision regarding the project. I believe there were conditions.
21 conditions. 21.
Page 21.
No, there's 21 conditions on page 11, page 11. And I'll ask Township staff, are all these conditions still good to go with tonight's discussion? Understood.
Does anyone want to make a motion, or does anyone on the planning commission?
I'll make a motion to recommend approval to the Board of Commissioners for Major Plan 2025-103, St. Joseph Solar, contingent on the 21 conditions provided, if that's acceptable to the applicant.
That's acceptable to the applicant, Mr. Height.
I will second.
Is there anyone in the audience that has any last questions, comments? No? Those in favor?
Aye.
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 Those opposed? Opposed? So moved.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Good luck.
All right, the Nestle Purina wastewater treatment upgrades, that was canceled, removed from the agenda. We're moving on to agenda item 4C, which is Core Flower Farm Special Event Venue. Before we get into that, I do want to emphasize this is a conditional use review. it's not a land development review. And in turn, the purpose is not to discuss detailed engineering and land development. It's a conditional use. A conditional use is a use that's permitted by right. So it is permitted, but there are additional criteria that need to be met. So criteria, also known as conditions, that need to be met. Also, the township has the right to apply reasonable conditions onto that project. In terms of typical process, I just want to keep emphasizing this is not a land development. So the typical process is the applicant would go through the conditional use process. If that moves forward and gets approved, then it would go into land development. So the land development would be something applied for after conditional use. So I just wanted to get that out of the way. This is a step before land development, just so anyone in the audience understands the process. That being said, I'll turn it over to Mr. Baird.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm going to be a little bit more detailed with my introduction because this is a project, as you just said, that's brand new to the group, brand new to the Planning Commission and to the public. And so I'll read a little bit and hopefully that will go into the record and over the airwaves. Hector Lisboa is seeking conditional use approval from the Board of Commissioners for the development of a special event venue at 2303 Herman Lane. With a recommendation from the Planning Commission and thereafter approval from the Board of Commissioners, the applicant will construct a building to host weddings and other private events and gatherings to benefit from the rural setting and scenery. The proposed venue will include a farm-themed outbuilding with patio and 83 dedicated parking spaces. Again, as you said, Mr. Chairman, this is not a land development proposal, so we know that there are not hard engineering details provided for us to review. Tonight, the applicant is here to talk about the subject property located at 2303 Herman Lane, just south of the intersection of Herman Lane and Ware Mill Road. The property does include a single-family house and an approved farmstead and flower farm on approximately 8.96 acres in the RR2 or Rural Residential 2 zoning district. And for your base understanding, in the permitted uses of that district, the conditional use special event venue does fall as one of those permitted opportunities. There is a specific definition of special event venue that nearly 100% matches what their intentions are. I'd like to also share with you that over the last few years, the applicant has achieved ever evolving use of this farm to demonstrate to the township the commitment to farming on this property. As a family, they've achieved permits for outdoor events, for a farmstead with parking. They've even gone after and achieved approval for an agricultural pole barn building that they originally intended to incorporate into this kind of an idea. But along the way, I think this idea always sat in the back of their minds as they presented their application to us. And so they've now arrived at this more complex idea that does fit the ordinance under a conditional use application, special event venue. I know that we have the applicant here to describe their project. And as you have also said, they will go on to the Board of Commissioners at some time to engage in an actual hearing similar to a zoning hearing board. They'll be presenting facts and figures and ideas. Tonight, we have had all of our staff and consultants provide review letters, and some of those comments and suggested conditions lend to a future land development review. We know that. But in terms of our first review, we find that they at least meet the initial criteria of a conditional use application and they meet the ordinance. So I'd like to invite the applicant up to present their project to you. If you have any other questions for me, I'm happy to answer them.
Thank you. Calorito, would you like to do the township engineer presentation?
Yes, thank you. As was said, this is mainly a zoning exercise to go through the conditions. As you can see in our letter, we have some generic standards or general standards, I'll call them. Talks about some stormwater, talks about frontage improvements on Herman Lane, and most importantly, access back to the parking lot. I think those are all standards that you would have to look into if this project moves forward, make sure that you have safe ingress and egress to that parking area, make sure it works. That being said, we'll leave it up to the criteria presented and was discussed by Kent and for this application.
Thank you. Would the applicant like to present? Please state your name and your relation to the applicant, the record.
Sure, thank you. Good evening. My name's Kevin Fogarty. I'm an attorney. I'm here on behalf of Hector Lisboa, who is the applicant and the owner of the property. Hector is seated in the middle here. His wife, Melissa, who lives at the property with him, is seated to his right. And Casey Bond is here from Base Engineering to answer any questions that anyone may have regarding the plan that he prepared that's up on the screen. Hector has brought with him the property. To appreciate this property, if you drive by it, you won't have any idea of what's really back there beyond the house and the initial driveway. So what we've brought with us here, go to some of the overhead pictures that will give you an idea of what they have developed. Hector bought the property in 2018. And for the last, 6-7 years, they've been developing this into, I think it's designated as a medium scale farm. I saw that in one of the review letters, and it got some accolades for the things they've been able to achieve there, which they've done as basically a family operation. Okay, so Hector, if you can, when you get that set up, the objective here, and you want to position it too, so that the people maybe over and along the side there, so that everybody else here can see it too. Okay, can you, Hector, can you orient that to what's up on the computer screen? In other words, explain how it relates from where the street is.
Can you hear me? Is it on? Okay. So basically.
Keep your voice up. I know you're soft-spoken, but keep it up just for tonight.
Sure. So basically where the two tunnels are here is exactly where the two existing tunnels are right there in the yellow. So the proposed structure would actually be on this side of the two tunnels that we have, overlooking the 1 acre of lavender that we have. So that's where that's located.
Okay, and where's the house?
The house is actually over here towards the beginning of the left side of the plan. You can vaguely see it here.
Okay, and yes. The event center, and I know you prepared the actual project narrative that's in the package that was submitted to the township?
Me and my wife, yes.
The two of you created? Yes. Right. And does it indicate in there the number of the maximum number of events you would hold each year?
We're looking to do no more than 30 events per year.
And there would only be one at a time, am I right?
One at a time, and it's scheduled.
And did you and Melissa put together this handbook?
We did, for the board to see that we do have a plan and some rules that we will be applying.
Can I approach and pass these out? Yeah. So in that handbook that I just passed out, I didn't keep one for myself, but that's okay. Does it have in there all of the operational details? In other words, hours of operation as a starting point? Thank you. Does it have hours of operation in there?
It does.
Does it address things like noise?
It does.
And just give the planning commission members an idea of how noise would be dealt with, to the extent there would be any.
So the one big factor about noise in events like this is probably amplified music. As a builder myself, we are looking to actually add into, when we do go in for BOC, a rock wool insulation that is specifically designed for fire and also acoustical. So it'll reduce it tremendously more than the standard code of R21 would do.
And would the events that are held there, would they, I know there's a reference in the submission to there being a patio,
Yes.
right? What do you recall what the specific size of the building is?
The size of the building is approximately 7,340 feet. The patio itself is 900 and change square feet. There is not to be any amplified music outside. This music's only for inside as part of our rules. And also we are looking to obey by the ordinance for sound for the township.
Right. And what's the parking situation there? How many spaces would you be providing for this use?
We are proposing 83 parking spots on a gravel driveway.
And are you going to have a maximum number of people that you'll allow
Yes.
per event?
So we're looking to be at 135 maximum for the per event.
And what about
135.
lighting? Is there going to be any impact on neighboring properties of any lighting when these events are held there?
Well, lighting will be designed when we go into land development according to code. And we're looking to downstream lighting to not impact our neighbors.
Okay, as far as food, is any food going to be prepared on site?
Not on site.
Okay, and in fact, that's addressed in the food preparation and catering section of the handbook, correct?
Yes.
How's the food going to be handled?
It'll be through vendors and just warmers, almost like a catering.
Okay.
So the food will be prepped somewhere differently than the actual event venue.
Okay, now the project narrative that was submitted, you went through all the different I'm not going to stand here and have you recite all those or start reading them, but in the packet, you went through each of the conditional use requirements that are in the ordinance, correct?
Yes, for the last 3 years, yes.
Right, and you've been working on this for a while.
Yeah.
Yes, I get that. And have you seen the different, I think there's 6 different review and comment letters from various departments of the township.
Yes.
Have you seen those?
Yes, I have.
Okay. And there are conditions, there are things that are talked about being dealt with at the land development stage. Are you prepared to comply with all of those, the ordinance requirements for SALDO and zoning to the extent they apply to this event center?
Absolutely.
Let me give you an example. I think it's the engineer's letter or maybe it's community development. The existing driveway is noted in there that it's going to need to be moved and it's going to need to be widened. Are you prepared to do that?
Yes.
And there's mention, I believe it might be the engineer's letter, that there might be road improvements needed in terms of widening, whatever, curbing, sidewalk, whatever is required under the ordinance. Are you prepared to do all the things that are referred to in the engineer's letter as well as in the community development letter?
Yes.
Okay. I don't know if anybody has any questions for Mr. Lisboa at this point.
Anyone have any questions? So for events there and the 135 people in your parking capacity, does that include support staff or that would be like in addition to that?
That would be including staff. trying to create something more in the micro, not too large.
I think from a parking standpoint, and I don't know if Mr. Bond can speak to that or not, I think the number of spaces meet the technical requirement. There's also language in the conditional use section for an event center that talks about the availability of temporary parking, for specific events. Casey, did you check out the parking? Did you do the calculations for that?
Yeah, it's the 83 is
Say your
actually
name for the record and your relation for with the applicant.
Casey Bond from Base Engineering. I did this drawing that's on the screen. The 83 parking is what would be required by your ordinance if he was using the entire building as an event center, which he's not planning on. He's correct. He's only going to use part of it. So we'll actually have an excess of the ordinance.
Yeah, let me explain, I think, and I glossed over that and I shouldn't have. Hector, you said the building is how large? 7,000 and what?
7,340 square feet, but
Right.
we're only using 4,000 for the actual event space.
I think it's actually 3,800 on the application.
Okay.
Right, 3,800 for the actual event space. Now, what I think Mr. Bond was saying was
He designed it for the complete square
they
footage of the
designed
building.
they calculated the parking requirement based on the entire building being used for the event center, which is pretty much almost doubling up. What are you going to do in the rest of that building, just so it's clear?
There is an overflow area that we could use prior to the flower sections for runoff. There's also availability parking right over here, which is about 6 parking spaces, but there's adequate places where if need be a runoff, it's possible.
Right, maybe I wasn't clear. The other half of the building or thereabouts.
Yes.
What are you going to use that for?
That's just for our agricultural use, for equipment and things.
It's basically for storing things.
Yes.
Right? It's not going to be, there's not going to be any activity in there.
No,
Okay.
not at all.
With the potential change in land use on the adjacent property to the south of you, do you see any needs or thoughts about adjusting your plan?
Are you
Yeah,
talking?
I know what you're referring to. We're not, at this point, we're dealing with the hand we're dealt, and we're just we'll have to deal with that if and when it comes down the pike. Your question's a good one, though, and it's a concern, but at this point, they've been working on this project for so long, and this was actually submitted in December. There's been no delay on the township. They didn't submit the plans with it until March. So, it's a valid question, but for right now, we're proceeding forward, and whatever happens, happens.
Anyone have any other questions?
This book was very helpful.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
I love to take the credit, but I can't.
It really outlined a lot of my questions about time, fireworks, everything's in here, so.
This is like a labor of love for them, seriously. The whole farm has always been, and this is what they've been longing to do there for a while. So.
And the intent is outdoor activities conclude by 9 p.m. Indoor music concludes by 10 p.m. Can you confirm?
Yes.
I specifically asked them before we came in here, I said, are you ready to agree? If I'm going to pass this out tonight, are you ready to agree that you're going to be bound by these things? If there's a recommendation that those be part of the conditions. They said, no problem. So this is not like seat of the pants stuff. They've been developing this for a while.
Very well thought out.
I'd like to ask a question regarding the guest count. You said there's a 135 person limit. Can you tell me how that number was calculated?
Per square foot, I believe event centers under South Whitehall's 15 square foot per per person, which brings it to 266 people. But we're not looking to host humongous events. We just want to help the farm financially to support it and sustain it. So, and share our beauty that we have created.
Did you work with anyone at the township to create that limit?
I don't think so. I think it was just me and her. And that there's other things that we have been working with the township and their comprehensive plan.
I don't have anything definitive, but in conversation with the fire marshal here at the township, there may be some question about the maximum capacity for the event
I
center.
thought that was
So
150 for a
Excuse me?
sprinkler system. Is that what it was?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear what you said.
Are you referring to like the sprinkler system?
The size of the event venue, the sprinkler system, there's a lot of variables that the fire marshal was considering as we were discussing the maximum load for the building. So I think that's kind of an unknown, at least from my perspective, and something that maybe we have to explore a little bit further.
You might be right. I'm just looking at that review. The review letter it had a couple of good general comments, but it didn't get into any
It did
specifics
not,
of
and we
numbers.
explored it after the review was issued, and it was too late to make it into the packet. So it was an issue that came up after the fact. But if you're agreeing to be bound by those, by what's in your package tonight, I wanted to point out the fact that that number might have to change dependent upon what's permitted by the fire marshal and otherwise by the ordinance.
I get it, except that's not really in the package. What you just described as what the fire marshal may have a concern with a limit, I didn't see that in there.
It may not be, but it will be raised before the Board of Commissioners. hearing next
Absolutely
week.
understood, and it may very well not be an issue at all for them.
Yeah, if we have to adjust, it's not a problem.
Okay, well, if we're recommending conditions tonight, I just wanted to reserve the right to change that pending fire marshal input.
Understood. I get it.
Thank you.
Sure. Thank you.
But can you be more specific of what he told you so we could, be more prepared?
It's Dave Manhart is raising his hand to help me out.
The
Thank you.
building codes for the use group dictate, and there's certain standards that'll have to be followed. And I think when it gets to the land development and building permitting, that's when a lot of those questions will get flushed out. But I think at the issue here, and I think what the cap would be is that 135. I think what Jennifer is saying is it may be lower based on whatever the building code allows. So
Understood.
if we set the cap at 135, you may not get 135 after it goes through the whole process.
Understood. I mean, what if the code limits it in some other way, we're bound by that. They're not looking for any waivers on something like that.
And building code would be during the building permit process.
It would be during the building permit process. So I don't know if it makes sense to build something into the conditions tied to the number. But
is that based on people in the building? Just in the building?
I'm not as familiar with the building code or the fire code. But all of that gets reviewed at building permit time. And I think it's
regardless, it would be contingent on the fire marshal.
Yes.
I mean, we could make a condition, it has to be compliant with building code, but that's
And the fire marshal.
already,
And not to
that's
exceed.
already going to be a requirement regardless.
Yeah, that's all per saldo, right? At the end of the day. So
Sorry, I raised it because council suggested that what's in the packet be attached as conditions that they're obligated to satisfy. And with that particular one being included, I didn't want to be obligated to that number.
Right.
So as we,
Thank you.
yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, thank you.
Adjusted if required by building
And fire marshal.
code and fire marshal.
I mean, don't we just have to say, as we go through the yay or nay vote per saldo and all applicable township codes and ordinances? Because like it goes without saying you have to meet that, but we can be specific to kind of counterweigh against the book.
Anyone have any other Comments, questions? Open it up to the audience. Anyone in the audience have any comments or questions? No? Is there anyone online that has comments or questions?
I haven't seen anything in the chat. Oh, wait, I'm sorry, there's a hand raised. If you could please, put your name and address in the chat for the record.
Oh, sure. So my name is Deirdre McAndrews, and my address is 4055 Jeanette Circle, Allentown, PA.
Thank
Can
you.
everyone? Yes, you're welcome. I don't have any questions. I just have a comment. My comment is I think that this definition of conditional use is entirely a stretch. I don't understand how this is a flower farm. They cannot even provide flowers. It says on their website, because our flowers grow at the pleasure of Mother Nature, we unfortunately cannot guarantee the availability of specific flowers. I just wanted to go on a record that I think this is a total stretch of what conditional use is.
Thank you for your comment.
You're welcome.
Great. Oh, yep. Yes, please come to the podium. State your name and address for the record.
Hi, my name is Christina Holsinger. I'll be really brief. My address is 1240 North 36th Street. I think it's amazing. I think if someone's going to take their property and bring all this small business here, I think all the power to you. I think it's a fantastic idea, and I'm in the community, so I support you. I just want to say that. Yeah.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in the audience or online?
I have a follow-up question. What's the largest vehicle you anticipate using this facility?
Largest vehicle?
Largest vehicle, like a service truck or, I'm assuming you're not anticipating tractor trailers, but
no,
like a 26-foot box truck or something like that.
We have gotten a lot of equipment back there as we have grown the farm.
Okay.
Big equipment, tractors, skid steers, a lot of rental companies come and dropping off tractors, servicing them as we have progressed with the farm. So access for larger vehicles is not an issue. The existing road there is pretty nice and flat. It's never given us any issues.
Okay, thank you.
And it's an open, wide field too.
If I may just jump in on that, some of the discussion with the fire marshal was fire truck access, and that's at the forefront of the mind, especially with the event venue. So that might change some of the configuration of the driveway and the parking.
Understood.
Anyone else? So if we would want to add on any conditions, there was some discussion about people, max count of 135, that may need to be adjusted per township code ordinances, building code.
And fire marshal.
And fire marshal. There's been discussion, emergency vehicle maneuverability needs
So
to be
and
compliant
that
with.
would be a land develop, it'll
Yeah.
definitely be addressed at land development.
I have one question. As far as curbing and sidewalk, is there any existing curbing or sidewalk out there on Herman Lane?
There is not.
Okay, just wanted that.
And that would be frontage waiver deferral request that,
And that would be a land development item. Does anyone want to make a motion?
I just wanted to say one thing. The review letters, there's really two categories of things. The review letters talk about what you just indicated, land development issues, and then they also talk about conditions. So the items that are land development issues would be just that. They would be land development issues. The things that are conditions are the things that we're saying here tonight we're fine with as conditions of the conditional use. If that makes sense, because I think there's a little bit of a distinction there. The land development things will have to be dealt with at that point in time. I think that last question just kind of alerted me to make that distinction.
Thank you.
Okay? Yep. All right, thanks.
All right, do we want to make a motion regarding the conditional use?
so I just have a procedural question. If the motion is contingent on the handbook, is that something like when we're developing conditions for Board of Commissioners, is it just kind of going through that and developing them? Or at this point, should we be at the detail where we kind of
I was
spell
waiting to
them
hear
out?
what the recommendation was, but
I jumped the gun,
what I
sorry.
was going to suggest at the risk of taking more time this evening was for council or the applicant to actually go through the handbook, because each of these essentially is a condition unto itself. So for the benefit of the public and the planning commission members, it's probably beneficial to go through what could be attached as conditions, just so that we all understand what's actually in here, having seen it for the first time tonight.
And for our commissioner online.
Understood. Understood.
Do you, sorry, before you get into it,
Sure.
do you guys think you're going to make any changes to this book?
No, this is
Once we hold you to it, you're held to it. So I
That's
just
what
want to like,
I get it.
like, I'm not trying to
I get
beat a
it.
dead horse here, but like.
I get it.
once
That's
it's in,
why I
it's
brought
in.
it up. I wrote it the way I did earlier.
Okay.
I didn't write
All
the book.
All right.
And I don't want to break the book.
And the book.
I don't want to break the book. I mean, well, yeah, we can do that if that's the preference. I don't know that.
Here's an example.
Okay.
Like you are agreeing to conclude outdoor activities by 9 p.m.
Correct.
Indoor music concludes by 10 p.m., only indoors. Those to me are conditions that would be attached to a conditional use approval and could be recommended by the Planning Commission tonight. Don't have to be. They could be added at the hearing level next week or whenever it might occur at the Board of Commissioners level. But those are that's the idea. The types of conditions that he's suggesting we attach and that I'm suggesting we go through tonight so we understand exactly what's in
I think
here.
that's a good idea.
Okay.
And so we'd start with that one. The outdoor activities conclude by 9 p.m. Indoor music concludes by 10 p.m. That would be one.
And
On the next,
when does the actual event space close? Like people have to leave? Like, is it?
I believe it's 11 o'clock.
Also, the event spaces, they're depicted on the plan. There's an indoor event structure, pole barn. There's parking and access. Now that's contingent upon adjustments that may need to be made as they move through the land development. So I don't know if.
Well, I think council was going to go through the handbook so that we could list them.
I think what you're alluding to is like what I said, what we talked about earlier with the driveway. The driveway is going to have to be moved further from the property line, and it's going to have to be widened. That's all going to be the land development side of things. I think in going through this handbook, though, we covered the ones on the first page. It starts with welcome to core. On the next page at the top, it says 135 people is the guest limit. That's the number that you heard earlier. On-site parking only. That's in the parking and arrival section. Street parking would be strictly prohibited. Emergency access lanes, which again, I'm assuming will come up during the plan approval process, must remain unobstructed at all times. The next section are more recommendations to people. I don't think they would fit in as conditions. Noise and music, amplified music is permitted indoors only. Outdoor ceremony audio is limited to low volume speech amplification only. Outdoor acoustic or low volume music may be permitted with approval. All music must comply with local noise ordinances. Subwoofers or high impact bass systems outdoors are not permitted. That's the end of the noise and music. The lighting, exterior lighting is intentionally limited and downward directed. Temporary event lighting must remain within approved event areas. Excessive uplighting or spill lighting is not permitted. Event lighting must be turned off promptly following event conclusion. Food preparation and cooking, that section. Food service for events is intended to occur primarily through licensed caterers or food vendors who prepare and cook food off-site prior to arrival at the farm. Limited on-site food warming, staging, and service may occur in designated areas in compliance with applicable health, fire, and safety regulations. No large-scale commercial kitchen operations, outdoor grilling stations, fryers, smokers, or permanent restaurant-style food service are allowed unless otherwise approved.
So no food trucks are allowed?
Correct. Food trucks? I'm looking at them.
We would allow licensed food trucks, but it's like a gray area because we're looking for food trucks that come pre-served, already pre-cooked. So it's a little gray area, but we're not looking to actually cook on site at all.
Like not a commercial kitchen on site.
Yes.
Understood. Thank you.
Alcohol service must be handled by a licensed and insured vendor. All applicable state and local laws must be followed. No self-serve alcohol stations. No fireworks are permitted. Temporary restroom facilities or restroom trailers must be utilized. Waste disposed of only in designated receptacles. I think the rest of these things are just general comments about how they intend to run the facility, as opposed to anything that would be specific enough to make a condition.
For a question for point of clarification.
Sure.
So where it's noted in here, unless otherwise approved, who's the approving body?
Yeah, that's a good question. I knew as soon as I started reading that one, that was going to come back to bite.
What was the?
There was the no large-scale commercial kitchen operations, outdoor grilling stations, fryers, smokers, or permanent restaurant-style food service are allowed unless otherwise approved. The question is, are you willing to take off the unless
If we
otherwise
have
approved?
to, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't know if that approval was upon the township or this is the standard expectation of the venue and then case by case scenario. I don't know if there's other permits.
No, I think from there, they're saying that they'll remove the unless otherwise approved from that section,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And then that eliminates it. I think when this was written, it was intended to be unless otherwise approved by them, which I get it. It takes away the township's ability, if that's not much of a condition, when you put that on at the end.
On the one where everyone leaves promptly, I'm just thinking of 60, 70 cars leaving at once. Would you have some type of traffic or someone in a vest,
Kind of
Yeah,
letting
we were
everyone out.
looking to have staff help enter and exit, and I think it's actually in there.
It is in there. It's under traffic management.
We encourage
sorry.
also carpooling,
It's on that,
staging.
it's on that same, the lighting section. It's in the middle of that page. Staff may be used to direct parking as needed.
I think maybe beef that up a little bit. Staff may be used to direct parking as needed when entering and leaving the premises would be my condition,
Not a problem.
just so it's more clear.
That's actually good. Yeah.
Yeah, that's fine.
The only other one I would add is a closing time of the event space itself, and they suggested 11 o'clock.
Does that meet existing Saldo? Is it 11 o'clock?
Our noise ordinance, and I looked it up on the phone, and I saw 11 o'clock, but I always thought it was 10 o'clock. So I would have to confirm that.
Sometimes it's day of the week.
Yeah, it changes. I think it
Yeah.
changes on the week, like the weekends are later.
And holidays, and it's,
Yeah.
It's like kind of a weirdly written ordinance.
The condition could be closing consistent with the township noise ordinance prior to.
I'm confused because saying outdoor activities conclude by 9, indoor music concludes by 10.
but people can linger around.
But you got to tear down at the end, right?
Okay,
So,
yep.
so
Yeah,
the venue closes at 11.
Yeah.
Is what you're.
Everybody out by 11. Or you stay.
Venue closes by.
That was a joke.
Okay.
All right. I mean, I think that's for what I think they're going for. That's kind of normal and customary.
But it's a good condition.
But yeah.
For sure.
Like if normal was 2 a.m., we could talk about 2 a.m., but I think normal is 11 p.m.
They might
to kind of shut
adhere
down.
to that voluntarily, but the next owner
Yeah.
it could turn into something where this would be running with the project, so.
Just one thing to bring up, when you talked about the lighting, we understand what you're going for downward direct lights and low lighting. I think I would just condition that or think about that you have to meet the lighting ordinance, right? If you have a parking lot
Yes.
that requires this many lights and sidewalks that require baller lights, meet the ordinance. We appreciate the low light levels, but I think that we don't want to say we're going to eliminate lights. We're going to keep it safe.
No,
but
I completely understand. Yeah. And we're looking to do all the parking area and
Sure.
wherever the foot traffic is. I think when we mentioned low lighting, it's like maybe the ambiance of the building or
Perfect.
something in there.
No, I think it allows for that. I just
For
want
safety,
to.
we definitely need the lighting. Yes,
Sure.
absolutely.
Excellent. Sounds good. Thank you.
We also don't want those temporary light structures
Yeah.
that like light up like a daytime, so. With respect to the neighbors.
Yes.
Are you going to run like electrical conduit and have proper lights in the parking lot? Or
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So there's no temporary generator lights?
No.
Okay.
Does staff have any other recommendations for conditions?
There was a comment early on about the number of events per year. So I don't
Didn't
know
they
if there
state
was
30?
clarification on that
Yes, maximum of 30.
condition.
Do you think it's always going to be 30 or are you going to grow beyond that? I don't want to limit your ability to grow your business. So there's 30, there's 30 weeks.
Seasonal, the farm is seasonal. And as much as we want to share this with everybody, we also like our piece.
Okay.
So the bigger picture here is to support our farm. That's why 30 is more than adequate for us.
Okay. But I just don't want to handicap you.
Yeah. I mean, that's
It makes sense. Okay.
And it's a boutique wedding venue, so it's small and that kind of brings more. But if it's like limited to the events that
That's, yeah, great. Then I think we make it a condition. Or what staff mentioned. Yep. Does anyone want to make a motion based upon those conditions discussed?
I'll make a motion
I'll second.
For what exactly?
to recommend conditional use
Approval.
by the Board of Commissioners contingent on the conditions outlined in this discussion right now. And the book that was mentioned by their attorney, if that makes sense.
That's strong enough. I'm just asking if, should we list them or talk?
No, I think that's fine. Because I think we all have an understanding that the conditions really are generated mostly or primarily from the book that was created and handed up this evening. I think I made a list of 16 separate conditions that will be pulled from that. And if a recommendation is given tonight, those conditions will be passed along to the Board of Commissioners for consideration and vote as well. And they may add their own. They may come up with additional conditions that we didn't consider tonight. But this would just be a recommendation based on the ones that we talked about tonight.
Part of the hearing process.
Correct.
Great. In that case, I'll second if I need to hear it. Say it again. All right. So we had a motion. We had the second. Those in favor?
Aye.
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 Those opposed? None opposed, so moved. Good luck.
Best of luck.
Thank you.
Good luck.
Oh,
Yeah, they gotta go through the full
gamut. So
Yeah.
I think this is a great.
Put Tony on the spot. All right, Tony, you're up. Transportation, infrastructure up.
No, Chris is loaded up for this one. I promise.
Chris has a transportation infrastructure update. Okay. So the township received a TASA grant application award.
Right. Excuse me, those in the audience, please. We're still in the middle of a meeting.
So the transportation infrastructure update, the township received their TASA grant, was awarded for the continuation of the Jordan Creek Greenway section from Lap Road to the high school for $1.5 million. That was just awarded this week.
Great news.
That's great. Those of you that remember, this is the project that when we talked to Parkland High School for the high school expansion.
That's great.
The gap being filled.
Anything else? Is that it?
I think just a quick update, the Lehigh Valley Planning Commission is submitting a call for projects for is it now the Metropolitan Transportation Plan, which was formerly the Long Range Transportation Plan. So staff is working on a series of projects related to that to submit for the call for projects to be considered in that update. And as part of that plan update and the bi-county conservation or bi-county comprehensive plan.
Now, does that get, our township projects help get funding?
So what essentially the new, I guess is MPC or what, not MPC, whatever they're calling it, MTP, is essentially the long range plan, and then projects from the long range plan get bumped to the mid and then to the tip, which is where the project funding comes. The Lehigh Valley Planning Commission has combined their long-range transportation plan and their bi-county plan. So what they're doing in the process now of updating is both plans. So they've had a series of strategy labs that we've been involved in and collecting data and information from municipalities and stakeholders across the valley. So over the next few months, we'll be seeing, over the next year, essentially a year and a half, we'll start seeing more information on the comprehensive bi-county comprehensive plan and the MTP will be starting to get circulated.
Great. Thank you, Dave.
But for a project to eventually get on the tip, which is actually when the money talks, you have to be in the MTP or long range plan. So you got to start somewhere. So my question is the township thought about Ridgeview and 309?
Ridgeview and 309? Absolutely.
That should be a priority.
So that was in the safety plan as one of the top priorities. There was that and Hamilton were two of the big ones.
Thank you.
I know the LVPC has a survey out for the public to take related to, I just did it today at the Chamber Transportation Summit.
So I think
it's on the website.
That's what's out now is the
code,
needs assessment, I think is what it's called.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know that it was exactly a call for projects.
No, it was just like a public survey. Okay. Anyone can take. I don't know if it's worth like pushing that on our website.
Well, you know what? I think because
the public can, it's not just like
Yeah, I went on the website to look for it and I couldn't find it.
Yeah, there was a cue card on my table, so I can do it there. But
if you go on their Facebook, they have it there.
Okay, so maybe we'll push it out real quick because I think it expires Sunday.
Yeah, it was like the end of this week.
Okay,
but it takes 2 minutes.
Okay,
and it's very user friendly. Check boxes. Do you like public safety? Do you like trucks parked on the middle of the highway? Yes or no? Like it's pretty easy to do. So.
All right, agenda item number 6, comp plan reexamination report.
So at our last meeting that we met, I think in March, we talked about the reexamination report for the benefit of the room. This is the reexamination of the township's comprehensive plan adopted in 2023. We review the goals of that plan annually and address what maybe has changed and some major elements that could be impacting the goals of that plan or our progress of implementing that plan. You can see a quick snapshot here of kind of the original implementation items and the status of those. What we did and some highlights of projects that have just moved forward in the past year. What we did at the last meeting is we identified a number of potential topics that would influence the plan and some of our goals. You can see some of those topics here: housing, data centers, the development review process, open space and natural resources, historic resource and transportation. Some of these we discussed were either things happening in the area, things happening in the township influencing some of our work. Some of it was work that the township is doing ourselves and how that leads into other priorities. So these are kind of some of the emerging issues, and we talked about sort of cleaning these up into identifying essentially what are the recommendations based off of these topics specific to action items. So staff has taken the comments of everyone from the last meeting and identified recommendations for you tonight to look at. Sorry, I'm just pulling it up on the other screen for Commissioner Kelly. And all right, just 1 second, if you wouldn't mind running that. So with housing, there was a number of items that we talked about, all with some of the regional housing initiatives going on, state housing initiatives, revisiting some of the housing topics of interest from the comprehensive plan. The thought was to essentially develop a township housing strategy that addresses what are our priorities and how does that fit within state and regional priorities. Data centers as a whole coming to the area, a project submitted to the township. The action items here we talked about from kind of a broad scale is to update the PERT ordinance. If you recall, the PERT ordinance was drafted around the summer of last year, adopted in October. Now that we're seeing more related to that and having a project at hand, and also some of the other guidance that has come out from a state level and other examples, updating that ordinance, and then specifically related to energy. Energy conservation was something we talked about in the comprehensive plan, maybe considering how we would prioritize developing an energy conservation plan and identifying the scope of what that actually looks like, given some of the impacts associated with data centers and that infrastructure as well. Development review process. This is kind of the behind the scenes administrative piece of what we look at when it comes to land development, amending the SALDO process to streamline development review. I think what we have seen, especially this planning commission in the past several years, we've seen some very, very small projects that have to go through a robust land development review process. Some things are applicable, some things are not applicable. We don't really have the clear the pathway for some of those unique projects in our SALDO. So updating that with some of those projects in mind. And then it's great to see public coming out to our planning commission meetings, but I think we've heard a lot from the communities not understanding really the land development process, where projects are in the land development process, and how to find out information. So prioritizing developing more public-facing tools related to land development review. The land development reviewer that Dave has prepared, and kind of updating that and kind of giving more of a clearer space to where projects are for the community. Open space and natural resources. We have the open space referendum passed last year. We are starting to collect some income for the open space program. So really developing that standard operating procedure of how do we actively pursue open space acquisitions, updating or really creating a clear open space map with some of those priorities listed. This also ties into the Jordan Valley overlay, which was really being worked on last year, kind of had to step to the side a little bit to focus on the PERT ordinance. So getting back to that and prioritizing, updating that, including some critical open space updates to both zoning and SALDO based off of the South Whitehall Landscapes Plan. In addition to that, not just from a land development review, but updating some natural resource protection ordinances that affect properties that are not just going through land development, but just our critical natural resources in the township, and ensuring that we have protections in place. And all of that comes together into the township official map, and actually showcasing those priority critical resources, the open spaces, and updating that ordinance to ensure that we can use that for protection. Similar to the open space planning, the historic resources, the township adopted a historic resource inventory at the end of last year. So ensuring that those that list of potential resources of historic value can actually be classified, identifying the process for that classification in a preservation ordinance, also in that ordinance, enabling protections for those critical historic resources, and allowing for adaptive reuse and more creative zoning tools to ensure that some of these historic areas and historic structures can be preserved long-term, while allowing some landowners, developers to utilize historic resources within their developments instead of having to demolish them. And transportation, we adopted phase 1 of the transportation plan last year, active transportation and safety. We've been working on we worked with a consultant last year for phase 2, which was identifying priorities for reclassifying roadways by both functionality and character. Also looking at truck and freight restrictions and potential concepts for more broad scale congestion management. So the idea of phase 3 of the transportation plan would be compiling all of that information together to a clear list of priority projects, priority processes to develop, and establishing not only, we talked about having that list of projects to go for the call for projects for the long range transportation plan and where we're directing our time. And that would include identifying a streamlined capital improvement program for us to look at local road improvements. Again, all of that can then be situated onto the township official map. So it's a lot of stuff there. I think what we're looking for from the Planning Commission is there's a lot of directions we're going, and we've assigned sort of a priority system of staff and a timeline. Now the timeline of short, mid, and long is really still within kind of the next year or two. We're talking, these are priorities for us to continue to work on now. What we're looking for from the Planning Commission is, does this make sense to you? Is this something that we should be reprioritizing, and kind of a recommendation to take the reexamination report to the Board of Commissioners?
Thank you. Do we have any?
It all looks good to me. The only question I had is, when do you anticipate that the EAC will start doing land development reviews?
So
our meeting here.
Yeah, we're anticipating adding into the open space provisions into saldo. So under kind of like this item here with the Jordan Valley overlay, we would have to designate exactly what the EAC is reviewing under saldo. So for other advisory boards, it's clear what aspects of saldo they're reviewing it against. And so that would include developing their checklist of items, which the EAC has expressed interest in, and having a good checklist to look for, but just codifying that in saldo. So it would be in that time frame, which is why we have that as high priority short term, because adopting that ordinance kind of covers a lot of boxes.
It gives us another tool in a toolbox, and it's works well in other municipalities. So I'm excited to see it come to fruition here.
If I can just kind of give a great little plug to the EAC, they were able to review the conditional use because that's explicit in zoning ordinance, and I'm very proud of their first sort of review. It's not exactly land development, but kudos to the EAC.
Are we defining the scope of what they review and having clear direction?
So other municipalities have benefited from having like a clear checklist of items that are environmentally related that they actually go through for each land development. I think a lot of this would be around open space. I think that this is also an opportunity to expand upon the limitations of the Landscape and Shade Tree Commission if there's specific landscaping related to like natural resources and things like that. But the short answer is yes, to give some clarity there.
Don't have anything else?
Are we going to see that checklist as the planning commission to approve it?
Yes, because I think what we would do is take that checklist, put it into the ordinance, and then you guys would review the ordinance. But I can potentially put that checklist into the memorandum to the planning commission.
Okay. Thanks.
If there aren't any other, yep, please state your name and address for the record.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Ryan Eunice, and I live at 2927 Orfield Road. I just had a quick question about the update for the PERT ordinance. would the ordinance be updated before the July 31st deadline for the Board of Commissioners?
So are you referring to the deadline for Project Atlas?
Yes.
So maybe I'll hand over to Director of Planning.
So the ordinance would not apply to an active project. So any of the updates to an ordinance, so a pending project that's been submitted,
Their grandfather
you
did.
can't change the ordinance on them. So the existing PERT would apply. If this project went away and another one came in, then the new ordinance would apply.
Okay, so if Atlas does get approved, it would have to be in compliance with the current version of the ordinance. That doesn't really make sense, but okay, thank you.
Unfortunately, we can't kind of move the goalposts after someone's already submitted. And that's kind of
State law.
the MPC. It's state law, unfortunately, for better or for worse. But I would also add, we had no ordinance. And if we would have not had one and they submitted, they would have gotten to kind of help us write one. And it's kind of by their rules at that point. So again, I commend staff and that we were able to put forth something, but I get it. Nothing's ever perfect. We can always just do our best.
Anyone else in the audience have questions about the comp plan report? All right, do we want to make a motion? Forward to Board of Commissioners?
Make that motion.
I'll second.
All right, those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? None opposed, so moved. Agenda item number 7, courtesy of the floor. Anyone in the audience have anything to say, any comments? Please just come to the podium, state your name and address for the record.
Hi, my name is Maha Yunus, and I live on 2927 Orfield Road. That's in Allentown. So I have just a couple of questions. I was on the Tuesday meeting at the Parkland School Board meeting, and they told me they sent a letter to the township with all their concerns, including the unknown identity of the tenant, which is preventing them to fully vet the applicant. Now that you guys have the letter, what are you planning on doing to address their concerns and guarantee the safety of their students and faculty? Second thing, I would like to ask if anyone had performed assessments on property values. Atlas is proposed next to the 2 largest homes in the township. Are you going to pay them the difference in loss of value? And the last thing would be, if Atlas appears on the agenda for some reason next time, will someone presenting them appear here in front of the board, like the solar project for the church, and why not? Thank you.
Turn it over to you, Dave. Mr. Manhart.
So we did receive the letter from the school district. The comments will be incorporated into any review of any resubmission. Once we get a resubmission, the project will be scheduled just like the solar project. There will be somebody here. I'm anticipating we might have to change locations, but we will certainly keep everybody up to date on that.
And for high profile projects, we've met in schools previously.
Do we have any idea when they plan to come to the Planning Commission? I know they were on the agenda and then pulled a couple months ago.
Yeah,
and I know they have a lot of comments to go through. So.
They do.
100 pages or so.
It was like 110 pages of comments. Resubmission deadline, we did get something at the end of the day. So we have to go through completeness. And then this is complete, then we will do the public notice and advertise.
There's a question about
I thought there were 3.
that. Is there anything in our purview?
So the property value, I don't know if it really looks at property values directly, but there's a fiscal impact statement that the applicant provides, and we have a third-party reviewer reviewing that report and a response on behalf of the town.
Looked into. Is there anyone else?
Hello, everybody. My name is Beth Whitehall Finch, 1815 Ruth Street, Allentown 18104. Just wanted to really make a quick statement. I know there's a lot of concern around the data center. I am definitely one of those people who is very concerned for many reasons, especially the fact that, and I'm glad somebody mentioned maybe a location change, hopefully nowhere, anywhere near any of us or residential or kids, especially not across from a high school where they house about 33.
No, I apologize.
One second.
That was a location
change would be for the meeting.
Okay. Well, okay. So yeah, I would agree. There's probably going to be a huge turnout at any of those meetings because you have such a massive amount of people that are against this. So if, your constituents and everybody in the area are against it, I would hope that the recommendation would be to keep it out. So just wanted to make that statement, especially regarding the safety of our kids. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello again, Ryan Eunice, 2927 Orfield Road. Before I begin, I do have a bunch of questions that I do need answered, but would you guys prefer I go through them one at a time or all of them in one shot? I just want to save time here.
I would say if they're related to the data center and specific to something that probably the applicant for the data center's engineers or planners could answer, it might be best to save them. You're welcome to read them, but I just wanted to let you know that we're not the experts of the project.
You're the planning commission.
And they're not here yet to present. So it just may be worth asking them, but just so you're aware that our answers may be limited.
If any of these you can't answer, then just say so. So first question is about submission policies. So your policy online states that any new application would be submitted within the cutoff date. So like, for example, if they wanted to be on the June 11th, you would have to submit by today, but with the exception of resubmissions. Could you guys clarify if that policy still applies to Atlas, even though theirs was pulled from the February agenda? And specifically, could revised plans submitted after today still appear on the June 11th agenda? And how would you guys determine if those revisions are substantial enough to actually require additional review time? I just want to make sure you guys have enough time to actually thoroughly review this before the July 31st deadline.
So the resubmission deadline was today. We did receive a resubmission for Atlas, and we are reviewing it to determine if it's complete, if it changed substantially. So we're currently going through that completeness review. Once we can finish that, we post the public notice, and then that'll go on the website.
Would you guys consider expanding the 300 feet radius for the public notice because the effects would be within a couple of miles, not just 300 feet?
The 300 feet is by ordinance.
Okay.
So we kind of have to follow that, but I think the word will get out, and we will certainly put it on our website.
And how soon would it be posted on the website?
As soon as we deem it complete and public notice.
Sounds good.
And it's also in the Parkland Press.
Yes, and it's advertised. Public notice is Parkland Press and our website.
And the property would be posted.
I only asked because I live at the proposed site, and the only way we were notified was through the public notice, like in the mail. Yes, and I hope that more would be done this time around. That's fine. I'll move on to the next one. So one of the things that I'm struggling to understand is that the Environmental Rights Amendment of our Constitution, specifically Article 1, Section 27, states that citizens do have the right to clean air, pure water, and preservation of the environment. But Atlas would require about 25% of those diesel generators to be turned on for routine testing. And then biannually, 100% of them will be on simultaneously. And as a result, Parkland students and the residents of Fellowship Community and also surrounding residents would be forced to breathe in polluted air. So could someone explain to me how the operation of Atlas would align with our state's own constitution?
They'll have to follow DEP air quality.
Yeah, and I think
DEP.
additionally, that would be a question for the applicant.
Okay. My third question is about the per ordinance. If I run out of time, just tell me. The per ordinance does establish the 57 decibel operation noise limit, but the ordinance specifically exempts generator noise from that limit. I just have to ask why that's the case and why even put a limit on generators if they objectively produce the most noise. Even if only 25% of them are on at a single time, that will still exceed the 57 decibels. So can someone please explain that to me? Like why is specifically those generators exempt when they produce the most noise?
We did not make the code.
Who did?
Sorry, I'm running two machines here. So the question was about the generators being exempt from the noise.
So the per ordinance says that there's a 57 decibel limit,
yes,
but the generators are exempt.
When we were developing the ordinance, again, this was a year ago before we had seen Project Atlas, before we had seen any major data center developments in the area, before we had seen any noise ordinances established for this, we were looking at what the possibilities were for creating a specific noise control section that would supersede the township's actual noise ordinance. We heard about the township does have a noise ordinance related to other projects. So looking at the specifics of what the concerns were at the time of the continuous generation of noise, what we've seen in other areas out west in data centers, looking at the humming, the intent was to put in a noise ordinance to be specific to control that these things wouldn't be a nuisance all the time. I don't think any of us could have imagined a project the scale of that many generators that we're seeing at Project Atlas. It's actually something that we're looking to specifically address in the update to the PERT, as I mentioned earlier. So it is potentially something that was, I wouldn't say overlooked, it's just not something that we could have realized. Again, we were kind of working off of not much here. So
you admitted before that if Atlas does get approved by the time that July 31st deadline, they would still have to abide by the first version of the per ordinance. So that means that they would still have all of those generators and they would still exceed the 57 decibel limit. So basically what I just got from what you said is you're admitting that this township failed in that part.
This township did put something into place, and that's what we're looking at now. And that's where we do look at anything ahead of what may come in the future. We're trying to address that specifically with more information that we have now.
But if you update that in the new per ordinance, an updated version, they don't have to go with that because the first version was the one in place once they submitted.
That is correct.
And if they would have submitted before the PERT ordinance was put in place, they wouldn't have nearly the regulations they would have to follow. So
that's not what I'm worried about. I'm saying that the PERT ordinance that is in place currently that Atlas would have to abide by is not good enough. That's what I'm saying.
Well, it's better than what we had.
It's still not good enough. That doesn't help.
It's better than what we had.
It's not.
We had nothing before that was adopted. Nobody anticipated data centers 5 years ago. in this
We
township.
beat most of the other townships in the Lehigh Valley.
Everybody's
in putting an
scrambling and
ordinance
using
out.
ours as a
Other
template.
But
townships
it's
did
still
not even have
currently
one.
there is not good enough. Actively right now is still not good enough. You basically admitted that to me. You just did.
And that's the rule that's in place right now. And the
And it's
PERT,
still not good enough.
And-
It doesn't.
excuse me. And when the PERT was at this board and being reviewed, this room was open for public comment. The township staff were looking ahead. Nobody showed up then. We didn't know either.
Advertisements
So
everywhere.
the opportunity is always
newspaper
open for the public to
Newspaper
come in.
articles.
And to be fair to our staff, we update ordinances all the time to match current conditions. These things are evolving faster than ordinances can be put in place.
You basically just admitted that this township was out of its own depth.
The whole country was. This is an emerging technology that nobody can anticipate all the impacts. We did the best we can. There are very few, if they would have came in before, they would have a 50-foot setback. Now they have, what, 300 feet? So,
That doesn't really make a difference.
well, you know, would you rather have 50 feet or 300?
I'd
We're
rather
all
have a
concerned.
warehouse.
We are all concerned.
Yes.
We put and if I was in the audience, I could say that as well, but we are all concerned.
Okay.
I have a 600,000 square foot warehouse right in front of my house.
I'll take the warehouse.
And you know what they're doing in Allentown? They're converting a warehouse into a data center.
I do have one more question. Can I just get out of the way and I'll sit back down? Okay. So we use a private well, and as we mentioned, my well is within 100 feet of that property. The applicant did admit that they will not draw from wells. I get that, but that still doesn't really answer the concern about how the construction or the long-term operation would impact those wells. If the township does move forward with this project as is, or with an updated version of the plans, what written protections will exist for residents whose wells may be affected? And secondly, if the township cannot guarantee that nearby wells will remain functional, then what protections are actually being provided to the residents who are expected to bear the risks? I ask, if you guys are going to subject us to noise and also the air pollution, can you guys at least guarantee that my house will remain functional?
In terms of the well water, we need the applicant here to speak to what they're proposing. We don't have that in front of us. We need the applicant here to speak to
That doesn't answer my question, but thank you for your time.
that. State your name for the record and your address.
My name is Joel Gilly, 2977 Mock Chunk Road, Allentown. Two questions. Can you repeat exactly the process based upon today's submission?
It will undergo completeness review and determine whether the project has changed substantially. And if it's not deemed complete, the applicant has, I think it's 7 days to provide the items for it to be deemed complete. And then once it's deemed complete, we need it deemed complete before the public notice goes out. And that's usually 2 weeks, a month before, and then 2 weeks before. So that'll be not a month before. So it's the completeness review and then the public notice.
So the earliest it could be before this body is what?
The June meeting, which June 11th.
Okay. And then after that meeting, if there were to be a recommendation, how long does it take to get on the commissioners?
It varies, because oftentimes when plans come out of the planning commission, there's adjustments that need to be made to the plans before it gets to BOC. Typically, fastest we've seen is about a month. For larger projects, we've seen 6 months, if not longer. And there's an extension that they've talked about, and the date's been floated around. But that can be issued again by the applicant to go further.
To grant an extension
for the township
to the commissioners.
Yes. Yes.
And there could be instances where there's multiple planning commissions before it even gets to be able to go to the Board of Commissioners.
Got it.
Land development is a long process. Many months, can take years.
Last question. Is the claim that there was no awareness of this project when the PERT was worked on?
I was not.
I personally had no.
We're township volunteers.
We were just trying, when the ordinance was created, to locate the project somewhere. And we chose the industrial area, which, that land was former Trojan Powder property.
Understood.
If we wouldn't have done that, they would have been able basically to go almost anywhere in the township.
I would provide, so as a long-term township resident, my observations is that the landowning family has been off-letting that land over the last 15 years. So, the township staff looked into emerging things that were coming. That's why the PERT came up. It's pretty clear with the Ridge Farms, development that's occurring, and other things,
They're the largest landowner in the township.
It's the biggest, it's the hole in the donut, 2,400 acres there.
Yeah.
And so it's a big section of land and has unique zoning because of its history being an industrial, site.
Yep, understood. All right, thank you.
Kelly, 2977 Mock Chunk Road. When do the revised plans become available to the public?
So when we do the public notice, we'll post that public notice to the website, and that's when we'll load up all the documents for any project. We'll load the documents at the public notice.
So within 2 weeks?
Yes.
Thank you.
Hi, thanks for being here. I know it's getting late. I'm tired too. So I have 3 children. I have 2 at high school. I have 1 rising. And when we bought a property 20 years ago, I know, I'll repeat it from before, 1240 North 36th Street, Christina Holsinger. And they always say you can't change your surroundings, doesn't matter where your house is. And I feel like if something dangerous came into this community, you guys would be telling us what to do to avoid it. And my biggest concern, as much as I'm very concerned about the lighting, the noise that goes for miles, water gets contaminated, because if you look at what's going on all over our country, they're shutting down. So if you can prolong this as long as you can, because I don't want to be the guinea pig, and I don't want my children to be the guinea pig, so what other people are going to be complaining about. And my biggest concern is actually the health of my kids and the school that they're sitting across from. So when you say you're concerned, my concern is I don't see concern, because I feel like you protect us, and I feel like we keep deferring to whoever's coming here, and it's like we're looking out for them. Not saying you are, that's just how it comes across on this end. So for tools to be like, hey, guess what? This is how we can prolong this, or this is how we can make this go further, because we're all here. And I just don't have a sense. I feel like South Whitehall is so strict with things. I couldn't open up a little small business I tried a couple of years ago. So I went somewhere else. And these guys had a hard time about what's going on with these solar panels. And I had hope, wow, they're really putting things through it. But I'm like, there's no way they're going to pass a data center. So somehow I wish you would delegate or tell us, because guess what? I haven't talked to one person, Democrat, Republican, no one who's for it. So it really questions me, why would someone be for it unless there's some other motive? And that's only from what I'm perceiving from here. But, I have faith in this township, though.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Hello, I am Melissa Metcalf. I live at 3896 Orfield Road in Allentown here. And my question was just if anybody here is aware how flammable these things are and that being placed where it wants to be placed, it causes huge risk factors about being flammable and also with how many health effects it could cause. Asthma, respiratory issues, even cancer, different types of cancers, and the amount of radiation that they're going to give off. And they say that, no, it's the ionizing form of radiation that isn't harmful, but any type of radiation is super harmful to our health. That's it. Thank you.
In terms of fire emergency access, every land development project is reviewed by the fire department, by public safety. They have to get approved by those respective departments. Does anyone have any other questions, comments?
I think like maybe on the flammable question, again, that'll be something we have to wait to see if there is an applicant and they're present to look at the data they're presenting about is there fuel being stored on site, et cetera. Right now we're kind of, we would be guessing to have answers, but to wait for that point in time.
I'll add to that point, they have to design their building with fire suppression per code and what is kind of outlined in federal, state, and local laws. And all that, they're kind of in process. They're going through that process now. So we're a part of that much larger process.
So, Senator Coleman, please state your name and your address and unmute.
Thank you. Senator Jared Coleman from Upper Milford. And I appreciate you guys being there. I was there earlier, but I wanted to make it to public comment, but I had to get home to get the kids to sleep. I see the meeting's running pretty late, and I just wanted to make a comment about the data center. We're on, is it courtesy the floor right now?
Yes.
Okay, sorry. I just want to make a comment. I meant to say something earlier, but as we're all trying to grapple with the data centers and understanding the implications, we've put out a couple different bills to try to give townships a little more flexibility. The one thing we're trying to address from the state is I'm trying to remove the sales tax exemption on the computer equipment to try to not incentivize as much data center development across the state. And we're also working on a local moratorium bill that would allow municipalities to do an 18-month moratorium. I do have draft legislation on both of those that I was going to give to you guys tonight, but I had to get out of there. So I will send that over. I'd like to potentially, I'd like to get your input on it. Just want to make sure that we're prepared and we're doing everything we can to make sure that we can give you guys the tools you need at your level. And so my office is certainly willing to do that. I'll send over in the morning a copy of that draft legislation for the local moratoriums as well. And I would appreciate some feedback on that. I want to be able to talk to the whole planning commission tonight. So that's why I came to the meeting. But the idea would be that, I understand the need to have data centers in the United States. I understand the argument for domestic security when it comes to national security in securing our data, et cetera. But I just don't know that it's the best thing here. And I think there's other places that might be a lot more suitable for data centers. I just don't know that right here is the best. I'm pretty much hearing from all my constituents, they don't want it. And I represent them. So I'm trying to give them, a little bit of a seat at the table. So I'm going to try to send you guys over this draft legislation. If you could give me some comments back, that would be helpful as well. And the only thing I wanted to ask further on the data center is the Atlas Center. I'm concerned over the if you remember, there was an agreement between Whitehall Township Authority and Mallinckrodt, I guess it was Mallinckrodt Group, over the 5 million gallons of formaldehyde that was dumped into the ground on that property. I know there's an agreement that the current owner, I guess, was pumping 200 gallons a minute, I guess, out of the ground wells that infiltrated to the North Whitehall ground wells. They were pumping that water back to the property, filtering it, and then discharging into the Jordan Creek. And that has since, I guess, stopped as of 2 years ago, waiting for some last quarterly reports on the contamination. But where I'm going with this is, I'm concerned that there's a part of that agreement between Mallinckrodt and the Whitehall Township Authority was that they would return the wells to the pre-damaged conditions at the end. And so I'm wondering if there's a way for us to have, different stakeholders involved here, so that what happens in South Whitehall on that property, but also has implications to other townships as it comes with the water and the pollution into the water, and making sure that that would be remediated, and that the purchaser would fix those wells and return them to the pre-damaged condition. Looking for some guidance on how we have those as chair of the Intergovernmental Operations Committee in the Senate, I'm interested in how governments can work together here. So wondering how we could have a discussion between, township to township and the state to make sure that that's addressed too. So I'm looking for, advice. If I send an email tomorrow, maybe we can have, some discussions on that. I'm trying to just get everyone involved. So.
Yeah, I think sending some emails to staff and we can start having those conversations and get something set up for sure.
And I'll send you over the draft legislation. So you guys, if you're able to give me your input, I just need to know what kind of tools all of you could find helpful in these situations to better protect folks. So I'll send that over to you guys as well. So appreciate any feedback you can give me. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator.
Thank you.
Thanks. Real quick on that. I know he said he's sending the draft legislation over. Would that be able to be applied to Project Atlas for the benefit of us and the public?
So long as they haven't received the approval already.
Approval from who? The planning
from
commission
the commissioners.
or the board?
I think the planning. I think planning.
So when are you hoping to put that legislation in front of the full state?
Well, I mean, I have a co-sponsor in the House I sent him my version of it. He's introducing it, I think tomorrow. So we should have the bill out. I would say by tomorrow or Monday, we'll have that draft. I mean, it's already in draft form, so it exists. And so hopefully it can be introduced in the next, very, very short time here. So if you guys can review it, that would also be helpful. There is belief between some in the state that a local moratorium right now could be placed, because some townships are placing current moratoriums. It seems that there's a belief that the moratorium can be placed, but some folks are trying to say it's a novel use, and we don't. A couple of our attorneys don't really believe that it's a novel use, because it already is a use. So that's why we had to do this separate legislation to allow for it specifically for data centers. And we break it out. Obviously, Atlas will be the second largest data center in the country. So, lots of concerns here. And we just want to make sure that we're giving our municipalities more tools. So you guys have the more tools to help you here. So in making the best decisions. So, and I guess the other thing is the fire, how would the fire services respond up there? These volunteer fire departments, how would they, respond to something up there? And then what would that do to the rest of the emergency services in the county? So, yeah, but that's the answer is we have the draft. I'll send it to you guys here tonight. And then if you can, give me your input back and forth, that would be helpful. And it's in the House already. I just sent a copy of it over to the House. So they're going to introduce it over there, I think tomorrow.
Thank you.
Thank you. That's encouraging.
That's all I had. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Anyone else in the audience or online? If that's everything, move to agenda item 8, adjournment.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Favor?
Aye.
Aye.